at the other boats. You must always just look at the space in front of you. That's Kisley laying down the law. Here comes Kova. It's Kova. He's taking Campos on. Stroke by stroke. He's going past him. And he's gone past him like he's standing still.
What a race! What a race!
God, be calm, get in. Be calm, be calm, be calm. The Hungarians are away.
The South Africans are away, side by side.
But it's Hungary. Hungary take the initiative. Just a mass of quality paddling. See collision in the background.
World champ.
Look at that.
From
that's going to be
Republic.
That's going to be tears. It's going to be laughing. Yeah. She can't believe it.
She's so happy.
Is going to get squeezed out. That is dangerously close to the edge.
It is McGregor. It is McGregor. No one has given up. Boros is hanging on. Alonso is hanging on. Gold medalist Hank McGregor, South Africa.
Well, good morning wherever you are in the world. It's the start of day 2 of the 2017 ICF Canoe Marathon World Championships, coming to you from Camps Drift in Pietermaritzburg. Day 1 was raced, some fantastic racing, and the temperatures matched the quality of racing. It was super hot. Temperatures got up to 37.5 degrees yesterday. The good news, it's going to be cooler. Not that we expect the quality of the racing to diminish in any way. In fact, it might even get better as a result of the slightly more forgiving temperatures, which are forecast to go up to 28. Greetings, as we say in this country, Sanbonani Dumilang Molweni Nonke. You're in the home of the Zulu here on the eastern seaboard of South Africa. My name's Dave McLeod. The commentary team today made up of myself, Ivan Lawler, and Stott and Doug Bird. We're looking forward to taking you through a day's racing that's going to be focusing on K2 racing largely between the juniors, boys and girls. A little bit later in the afternoons, the under-23s creep into action. It's going to be a huge day. Pietermaritzburg, known as the city of choice, Camps Drift, the home of the Doozy Canoe Marathon. This stretch of water is on the Umsen Doozy Canoe Marathon. And the organisers certainly trying to make every opportunity for the locals to enjoy their visit, not only to the city, but this entire region. The city of Pietermaritzburg is about 90 kilometres away from the city of Durban. It's two cities connected by lots of great sporting events. The Doozy Canoe Marathon is one of them. The Comrades Marathon, the Amashova cycle race, any excuse to get between Maritzburg and Durban, you'll create a sporting event for. But Durban, just down the road on the coast, is fabled for its Golden Mile, and I trust most of the competitors are going to get a chance to have a look at the city of eThekwini and Durban.
A trip to South Africa would simply not be complete without a trip to one of the many iconic game reserves in the province. Within a few hours of the centre of Pietermaritzburg are dozens of superb safari destinations where you can enjoy the magnificent wildlife, including the Big Five, up close and personal. The ultimate memory to take home with you. Combine your sporting passions with the unique appeal of this special corner of Africa. Plan to spend time in the thriving coastal hub of Durban, a popular tourist destination where the beaches of the Golden Mile and the year-round warm weather make it a holiday mecca. You can surf, scuba dive, stand-up paddleboard, paddle a surf ski the entire length of the Golden Mile, with many deep-sea charters leaving from Durban Harbour. Ushaka Marine World combines thrilling rides with a world-class aquarium at the southern end of the Golden Mile, a mile that includes the Suncoast Casino and the iconic Moses Mabhida Stadium.
Back at Campsdrift, and a real buzz of anticipation as we are about 8 minutes away from the start of the first race of the day. 2 races on the water almost at the same time. It's the K2 Junior Women and then the C1 Under 23 Men. A real buzz of anticipation because the racing certainly set this venue light. It turned out to be a real spectator's favourite because you can see virtually the entire bit of racing. And the girls from Epworth, who have been instrumental in making the organisation run so smoothly, they're operating the start pontoon, but Epworth is just down the road. They have had plenty of their girls go on to greatness through their canoeing program, and they're just super enthusiastic. They brought a real vibe to the race yesterday, and I saw a whole bunch of them arriving in the venue this morning with logos cokied all over their arms and foreheads, offering support for the local girls who are going to be taking part. The racing today is at Campsdrift. Campsdrift is a section of the Umsindoozi River which has been canaled off. It was created in the early 80s. And it creates a stretch of flat water in the center of the city of Pietermaritzburg. We come zooming in. That's on the right-hand side. That's the NCC Clubhouse. Stands for the Natal Canoe Club, one of the oldest clubs down here and the home of the Doozy Canoe Marathon. Just below the clubhouse, you'll find the pontoon that forms the start of the racing. It's a 3.4 kilometer lap here. You start by heading upriver. Remember, this is just coming out of winter, so there's absolutely no flow on the Doozy River. This is a flat piece of water. You go all the way up to the top turn can, which is called the Still Turn Can. You then move down alongside the route. This is a clockwise course, you'll see, which is perhaps slightly unusual. We'll chat more about that as the day goes on. A lot of these marathon courses are anti-clockwise. You come down to the bottom turn can. It completes a 3.4 kilometer lap. The first lap is a complete lap. There's no portage involved, but from the second and all subsequent laps, you jump out for the takeout. It's a short canter up a grass embankment and then a portage on grass in front of the grandstands here of about 100 meters before you head back down to the put-in. Your final lap will start with the put-in. You then head up to the turn cans, 500 meters up from the put-in of the portage. You then turn back on yourself. You come under the bridge on Campsdrift Drive down to the finish. And that final lap is exactly 1,000 meters, despite what it says on the graphic there. It is a full 1,000 meters. So Campsdrift, absolutely pristine conditions today. Ivan Lawler's with me as the girls get on the water for the first race. And you saw the boat of Christy McKenzie and Sabina Laurie carrying the hopes of the locals here. We've got 2 South African boats on the water. That's the other one on the water. But Ivan, let's just run a rule over this start list. We've got 11 boats, 2 from Spain, 2 from Hungary, and I guess that's where the danger lies.
It's very hard to look past lane 2 there, Korsos and Nagy, world champions, European champions already, and we saw the dominance of the Hungarians yesterday. Just below them, boat 3, second Hungarian crew, who I'm not familiar with, but they've still got Hungary after their lane draw, and that says something in itself. Lane 5, Peters and Russell, raced really well at the Europeans for the last couple of years and have got medals there. So I'm hoping they can make the break when the Hungarians go. And then you've got Mackenzie, who was 3rd yesterday. But on the top of the list there, you've got Ray and Hidalgo. Ray possibly had an argument that she could have come 3rd yesterday had she not been hampered by the Italian at the last portage. So she'll be hoping for more today.
Couple of girls in that start list who raced yesterday in pretty extreme heat conditions, so we hope they've recovered. The K2 racing is normally really hot and far more intense, so if anybody has really been worked over by the heat yesterday, we might see that exposed in the later stages of the race. Both the Mackenzie girls and the South African boats raced yesterday. I know Christy is still on such a high, she didn't sleep a wink last night. Ant will tell me about that. You suddenly go home with the World Championship medal in your bag and you just don't sleep a wink afterwards. So Johansson and Lagerstam in the colours of Sweden, and the 2 Argentinian boats, really actually excited to have them in here because a lot of the Argentinians were scratched early on the first day because I think they had problems with their travel documents. South Africa now requires travellers to come in with a completed authenticated and unabridged birth certificate, and that's what they got tripped up. So straight after that, Ivan, we're going to under 23 men C1.
This is a stacked field actually, with all the big players from the Worlds and Europeans. Number 4 there, Kolsar. He's one of the main contenders, obviously. Hungarian again. Then you come down to lane 7, Borgil. Well, we lost the list now. We'll move straight on to the women's K2 because that's on the line, and we'll recap on the under 23 C1 as and when they get going. But for now, they're almost under starters orders on the pontoon. Just the far boat from Sweden backing on now, and when they're on, they'll be waiting for the aligner's hand to go up.
That's Ray and Hidalgo nearest to us in the Spanish colours.
Away they go, first time. Peters and Russell in the middle, looking to be doing very well in the brown and black boat. They're leading at the moment. To the left of them is Corsos and Nagy. And the Italians, Isotta and Campagna to their right. And on the far side from Sweden, doing really well at the moment, Johansson and Lagerstam. But really great for the Great Britain crew. They're going to be away with the lead crew there, and could actually... we've already got swimmers from Australia.
It's Emily Rourke and Rachel de Kretzer who've swum. Must have just been a touch of paddles. Man, look at the frustration etched all over their faces. They're going to have to swim that boat to the side of the drift, and it's deep there. This is the deepest part of the drift. A lot of the drift is actually waist or chest deep, but the Egyptian geese flying overhead. But wow, it happened yesterday as well. We had 2 swimmers in the girls' K1 race.
Early on in several of the races, but this race has been strung out already. It's Corsos, Nagy and Peters and Russell. Could be a break of 2 by the first lap. I don't think the Italians, well, they're working hard to stay there at the moment, but it's going to be very, very hard. The second Hungarian crew so far of Kalami and Bako, they're not going to make the break. It's only the Swedes possibly running down the waves on the outside who can get to this group. But great news for Peters and Russell. The Italians hanging in there, but it's a very early break. Second Hungarians moving to the left in the second group there, trying to get back in contact with the leaders, but I don't think that's a goer. Australians making their way just below us to the portage.
A bit of an unfortunate incident there we saw just past the bridge. The TV cameras missed it, but looked like there was a bit of contact with the Spanish boat, Ray and Amy Peckett, and that's why they're battling off at the back of the bunch there. They spun right out and went right onto the left-hand side of the river, and now you see they're working their way back. They went onto the left, now they're working up the right there. You can see the Spanish. But yeah, unfortunate incident there, but they're working hard to get back up there.
Tough weekend for Ray then. She was balked yesterday, balked today, and it's going to be hard for her to get a result from there, because you know how hard it is to close down the Hungarians once they're up and running.
Super start from the British girls. Dream start, and they're sitting pretty as they go into the top lap. Well, we'll have to see if there's any consequence the first time they come into that portage. If we see that dreaded red and yellow flag come out, there might be time penalties. If the marathon officials who are sitting on the bridge there, they're sitting right there, they would have witnessed all of that.
The Italians, they're really struggling to hold on to those front 2, which is great news for Great Britain, because the Italian yesterday was the troublemaker at all the portages and stuff. So you really don't need that sort of stress in your race. So here we go, the lineup with the under-23 men's C1. We've got Ferreira from Italy, Herrero, Spain, Tosh, Germany, Kolsar, Hungary, Joaquin from Australia, Moreno from Spain, Borgil, Poland, one of the big players, Nakajima from Japan, Davidov from Ukraine, also a big player, Maciel from Portugal, Gluza from Poland, Dori from Hungary, the main man there from Hungary, Meister from Argentina, and Rodriguez from Colombia. They're on the line now, just backing in, and they'll be underway very, very shortly.
Their race is going to be 22.6 kilometers, which is going to be 6 laps of this 3.8 kilometer course here at Campsdrift, 5 of them with portages. The girls who've taken off just ahead of them, they should be finishing around about the same, and off they go. Nearest to us is Luca Ferragna in the colours of Italy. It's a super strong start from Dori, and they split. There's a big charge of them heading off down to the right as they go around the boys that actually form the finish straight here. Good song start from Ferragna, the Italian nearest to us.
And the Colombian on the far side, also well in the mix.
Moreno with a super start in that luminous boat. Davidov in the bright yellow boat.
And 704 Kolsar from Hungary also in that front group. But it's boat 712 Balázs Dori from Hungary, who's the current world champion. So he's going to be up there somewhere. Actually, I can only see from here one Hungarian in that race.
Well, fortunately, we can keep track on that through the live timing. If you happen to be watching this wherever you are in the world and you want to keep track of all of the athletes all of the time, you can get a link off the race website, which is WMC 2017. Those C1 boats, great shot from the drone. They're snaking all over the drift here. They're always tricky to handle. They're largely flat on the bottom, so the minute you are involved in all the wave and chop that goes hand in glove with the start of any big race like this, those boats tend to weave around, and keeping them straight is it's an art more than a science, and that sense of feel with that big-bladed battle is what keeps them going straight.
It's actually more than art, I think, Dave. I think
Oh,
it's
look at that.
magic.
They're weaving all over, and there's some contact going there.
You see just how hard it is to keep directional stability. He doesn't want to
my
do that.
word.
It's no help to
It's
anyone.
like dodgem cars at the moment.
When they get caught in the waves at the back of the big groups, they just lose their steering ability. And it looks to be Hungary leading at the moment. I think that could be Hungary 1 and 2. And the Italians were phenomenal in the canoes at the Sprint World Championships, from nowhere really. A few years ago they had no canoe paddlers of note, and at the World Championships they were great. The top 3 round the turn in the women's K2, it's still the Hungarians, Korsos and Nagy, and hanging on gallantly to them is Peters and Russell from Great Britain. The Italians still in contact, and the second Hungarians now have made their way to be the chase boat. Sweden, Spain, South Africa, and either Denmark or the second Hungarians are also there. Second Spaniards struggling to get around the turn with
And that's the second South African boat of Amy Peckett and Caitlin McKenzie in the white Cinco K2. Around that still turn. So a dream start by the British crew sitting right alongside the danger crew of the Hungarians.
Yeah, they haven't got the firepower of the Hungarians, but they're so tenacious. They've done this sort of race for the last 2 years where they've fought above their weight, really, and they do really well at it. They'll drop off at some stage, probably. One of the portages, maybe, who knows, but then they've got the ability to tough it out on their own for a good few laps. So high hopes for them at this stage. It's definitely fallen well for them.
There's a shot up Camps Drift to the still top turn can.
And that looks like only one boat in the lead there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like the Hungarians might have made a break.
So if that's the Hungarians made a break, behind them is going to be Great Britain and Italy, and they're going to be chased down by the second Hungarian crew of Bako and Kahalmi, sorry. But yeah, it's definitely Korsos and Nagy on their own, as they were at the Europeans, just paddling around by themselves. Very tidy, very well-drilled crew, as you'd expect, to be fair.
Are we going to see a Varga tactic here? Break early and just grind away. Oh, look at the gap.
There it is. It's done.
They have hammered a chisel between themselves and the rest of the girls. Well, they've dropped the British girls. This is looking so impressive. And I've got to say, they are looking so calm and composed. You're seeing poker faces on the two girls. They've got a plan, and that boat is absolutely motoring down Camps Drift. What a wonderful feeling. You decide to drop the hammer like that. The boat's feeling good. Your body's feeling good.
I've absolutely dissed them. That is Kahalmi and Bako. That's the new crew that I'm not familiar with. I haven't seen them race before, but they are the current leaders out on their own. I'd made the assumption it was Korsos and Nagy because they're the crew of note.
The fancied crew, yeah.
But which means that somewhere back there, Korsos and Nagy will be coming through at some stage, which could change the nature of the whole race.
Well, this is an impressive-looking break from the Hungarian girls. We talked yesterday about team orders and where you sit within that team ranking or your status within a team. But they would have come in here as the less experienced and less fancied crew, but they've clearly decided that they're going to take this race.
Well, they're the less well known to us. Who knows what happens at home? You know, they might. If we can chat to Andre later, he's been to all the events, all the junior sprints. He might know these two girls from the sprinting season. I mean, they're definitely no slouches, are they?
Well, they've come hot out of the blocks. My word.
So the boat on the left in the second group is just going to be, well, now currently leading the second group. That is Korsos and Nagy, and they will be making their way through. Peters and Russell coming up their right-hand side is Otta and her partner, Campagna from Italy. So this is a good ride for the medals for these two crews from Italy and Great Britain. They're going to have to fight it out at some stage. Meanwhile, at the top turn, got Hungary.
More bumping and bashing as they go around that turn.
Italy, Poland, by the look of it. Portuguese turning well on the inside. He's going to make contact with that group. Then you've got Davidov from the Ukraine and second Polish athlete maybe. That'd be Gluza from Poland. German going around now with the Colombian. So that's Sven Tosh and Rodriguez from Colombia. And that's Group 2 in the women's K2.
And wow, look at the amount of water between them and that breakaway Hungarian crew.
How do you get that much distance in just such a short time?
I'm trying to blame parallax or a camera angle, but it's not. That is a phenomenal break early on in lap 1.
We can see it live from our position here as well, so you can see exactly the distance, and it's huge. You're looking at probably 40 seconds there, and that's 40 seconds has been pulled out in, what, in 2 minutes, 3 minutes? It's incredible.
And it's not as if they've gone off the line with a red line sprint either. They're just looking so composed. You've got to be impressed, Dan Stott.
Very impressed. They're flying along and they're holding an amazing average speed there. And looking back to the chasing group, they're also going hard, but that front boat, it's poetry. Let's see how long they can hold that up for. But judging from the races yesterday, we know these Hungarians can hold this pace for a long time.
You didn't sense weakness at the second half of any of the races yesterday from the Hungarians who broke away. They broke away with confidence and finished the job. So this is the third pack in view now. So leading that is the South Africans, which is Mackenzie and Laurie. 360 there is, sorry, I lost my sheet. That's Sorensen and Moretti from Denmark.
That's Christy McKenzie and her partner Sabina Laurie at the front of this chasing bunch. Bunch of 5.
Spaniards on this side. And that's Nora Ray. Had a brutal day yesterday and another brutal day today. Her mum's here as one of the officials, and it must be pretty bleak to sit and watch your daughter get a beating, which is none of her fault, twice in a row, 2 days running. It's a tough call.
Back at the front now with Bako and Kolhalmi. Big roll of the dice from these two girls coming around the bottom Eurosteel turn can. Looking over the shoulder.
Yeah, do you think they're surprised that the gap has got that big that quickly? They know that Korsos and Nagy are pretty good. So Korsos and Nagy obviously got balked early stages, otherwise they would have been there. Yeah. And now you wonder what the dynamic is in their team. Who's got the actual strength over the distance?
Peters and Russell happy to be sitting on the wave then, on the inside as they come into the bottom still turn can. Korsos and Nagy leading this bunch. I've got absolutely no doubt that they have one short-term goal, and that is to try and eliminate that water that sits between themselves and Kolhalmi and Bako ahead of them. But let's have a look over their shoulders as we get a sense of just how much water there is between them.
The Italians just struggling on that group, and I don't think they're going to get back.
Yep.
Corsos and Nagy are hard to catch. They normally paddle on their own at the front of these races. So this could fall well for Peters and Russell. Could be comfortably in a medal position if they can just hold on to the Hungarians for long enough to open up a big gap.
Kohalmi and
So
Kohalmi
Kohalmi
and
and
Bako taking
Bako.
a very wide line there and start there
bizarrely
almost paddling
wide
alongside
line.
the jetty. They're blowing all the lead they've worked so hard for.
Yeah, it is bizarre to see them going so wide. I don't know if they were maybe thinking about the portage, but even for the portage, there was quite a wide line. But yeah, they obviously just got a good rhythm going. They're just putting in the power and not really focusing on the line. But we can clearly see they've got enough power to do whatever they want to do at this stage. But yeah, that definitely wasn't the most direct line. But yeah, maybe just getting nice and close up to the spectators to get a nice boost from the crowds. But yeah, very, very close to the crowds on the side there.
They're just paddling across in front of our commentary position now. And really is a tidy K2. Great reach from both paddlers there. So here's the graphic. This will be at the... No, it won't. It'll go off the screen just as I start talking about it. But Hungarians looking, well, dominant again. But I think the gap isn't opening up now. Now that Corsos and Nagy have set up on the chase with Peters and Russell in attendance there.
Just watching the second Hungarian boat now, they seem like they're going a bit faster. So they've got serious intent to close that gap and catch up again. And the
Although having said that, they've just slowed up to let Great Britain take the lead. If I were Great Britain, I'd be very wary of being used and then spat out later on. You do your share, but don't do it too hard, girls, because if you get tired and Corsos and Nagy go, then you need desperately to stay with them. Italians looking a bit more ragged in fourth place. They're falling behind now, but they're a good minute ahead of the chase pack of 5. We'll get a name check on the group of 5 as they come through. Leading is the second Spanish crew of Garcia and Figuera. I couldn't get the numbers on my screen there. We got a bit of glare on the screen we're watching, but we're at the front of the men's C1 race now. As they go through, it's Hungary 1 and 2. It's Ben Story and Kolsar, Zoltan Kolsar. So we've got Mackenzie and Laurie in that group. We've got the Swedes, Johansson and Lagerstam. We've got Mackenzie and Peckett also in there. And the Swedes are off that group as the Spaniards put in a bit of an effort. Could also lose Peckett and Mackenzie if they're not careful.
Yeah, they're under pressure on the right.
And Sorensen, Moretti make up the 5th boat in that group, but it could split to 3 and 2. But at the front, there's no doubt it's still Kohalmi and Bako eating up the distance.
Now that leaderboard's not right. Don't get excited about that if you're a Team GB fan. Front of this race being dominated by the Hungarian girls, Kohalmi and Bako. Peters and Russell are with the chasing group with Corsos and Nagy.
Now, for you spectators out there, we've got 4 portages today. You can count them yourselves because we're unreliable. But we're going to do our very best to get it right for you today.
This is our drone view of the Australian girls who started their race with a swim. Horrific start for the Australians, but they're back in the boat and they're grinding their way back in. De Kretzer and
So it
O'Rourke.
looks like it was only the Swedes that dropped off when the Spaniards put in that change of pace. We've got 2 South Africans, the Danes and the Spaniards there. No one in the V-wash. Danes need to sort that out. I know that Rennie Larsson will be watching that and he'll be embarrassed by that. But for now, Great Britain lead Corsos and Nagy.
And how do you play that, Ivan? You're up against a
mate.
real pedigree crew. I mean, you said it up front. They're underdogs in this battle here. You kind of got to respectfully pay your dues in that bunch of 2. But you also know you're outgunned. You've got to try and keep some of your powder dry.
Your leads have got to be so well measured. Those Hungarians are resting on the wash. So if you get to the end of your lead tired and the Hungarians put in even a 90% burn, you're toast. So you've got to, you don't want to upset them and go too slowly, but you can't risk going full on. First half of that. Still came up in the leaders on the screen and they were second. Nagy and Corsos, they are. They are second. They are second. Okay. So the leaders are coming. We're done. So this is the third group in the women's K2. The first group is only one crew. Second group is two, and this is a 4-boat third group. And somewhere between those is some Italians who are currently struggling. So here we are, front of the men's C1. We've got Hungary, Portugal, and Italy. And the Italians have really stepped it up in the canoe classes, both in sprint and marathon over the past few years.
Okay, copy that. Andrew, Doug's coming down to you for an interview, okay?
A well-organised group. Wash hanging well. But here at the front, no need for wash hanging for Kahalmi and Bako. They're currently in the lead by a good 40 seconds as they came past us about 3 minutes ago.
Still paddling extremely powerfully. They're putting a lot of effort into each stroke. And again, from yesterday, we saw that the Hungarians can hold it. If it was anyone else, I'd say, jeepers, they're going too hard and they're going to get caught. But we saw what the Hungarians are capable of, and they're going at an extremely fast pace. But yeah, the only question here is how strong is the second Hungarian boat, and working together with the British boat, is there a possibility of them closing the gap? So we'll see how it goes, but this front boat looking extremely strong at the moment.
I think you're dead right. We don't really know the form between these and the other Hungarians. Now, if these two are scared of the others, they might well be pressing on too hard, so that it could fold for them. So the lead C1's just gone past us.
Sergio Maciel in the Portuguese colours at the front group of 4 going past us at the moment. Another thing that was noticeable about the boat, and we're trying to unpack the Kolhalmi and Bako partnership, big blades. They've got really big blades for junior girls, and they've decided to go out really strong with the big blades, and you wonder about just how long you can keep that up with that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Hungarian mentality to have big blades and long paddles, but it's worked for them. It's a paddling nation that we can't really question. Their setup of boat and paddles is something that's worked for decades and decades. So yeah, I'm sure they've trained with those paddles daily, and they know exactly what they can do with them. So for them, it's the right tool.
There's the chasing bunch of Corsos and Nagy with Peters and Russell sitting obediently on the wash.
You see how far the Italians are down on those. They were with them at the end of the first lap, and they broke away at the bottom turn. Now the Italians are strung out. They've got a group of 4 chasing them, a group of 2 ahead. It's a fairly bleak position to be in. But for me, as a Great Britain fan, unashamedly, it's great news for us, because Isotta yesterday caused all sorts of problems at the portages, and you just don't need to be around someone like that if you're under load yourself and under stress yourself. So great news for Great Britain. Meanwhile,
Sergio Maciel still leading the group of 4 in the under-23 C1 race. Heading up past one of the Marshall's boats on the drift here at Camps Drift.
So
some extremely strong paddlers in that group as well. So
yeah, there's good paddlers going to be all day today, and they're only going to get stronger through the weekend as we go into the under-23 men's this afternoon. Phenomenal lineup for that, and then the senior racing at the weekend. We've got a few comments coming in on the live feed, and one of those is, why are they doing a clockwise course? And that's just how it is. I mean, the courses can be whatever they want. Traditionally, we've always raced anti-clockwise, 10Ks, 5Ks, always anti-clockwise. But just the nature of the course, the nature of the layout, it was clockwise in Portugal at the Europeans, it's clockwise here. You do see some confusion, or not confusion, you see a lack of ability sometimes to carry the boat on the other side, because for years we've always carried the boat in in the left hand, and now it's right hand, getting in and out the boat also. But yeah, change is as good as the rest.
100%, and thanks for the question. It's a really good one. I'll tell you another little secret. For years, we raced this course anti-clockwise when we race marathons here. Just the way that it's been set up and the way that the long lap being the first part of it and then adding the short lap into it, the clockwise setup just seemed to work. Our paddlers were initially resistant to changing the anti-clockwise layout to clockwise, but after we'd raced one regional marathon event, it just clicked. It just seems to suit this particular shape of river, and it's worked. I was puzzled to see so many paddlers come into here to start their training and saying it's impossible to portage with a boat in my right hand. It's not. It's a mirror image of what you do when you get out on the other side.
As paddlers and as athletes, you like things to remain the same, and you like consistency. And more than anything else, you love to moan at people who organise things. So it's just something to moan about, and you get used to it in absolutely no time at all. But here we go, an aerial view of Bako and Kahalmi. They are still leading by a country mile. And beautiful to have the drone shots today. And the drone shots even better when you're looking down on one of the big groups and you see how the big groups manage themselves and how they change leaders. And hopefully we'll get some of that through the weekend with the big groups forming. But really privileged to be commentating when the filming's this good, because it makes our life so easy.
Well, interesting. We chatted yesterday about whether we would see any time penalties. Well, all the Dodgem cars going on in that under-23 C1 race. When Matthias Borgil comes in for his first portage, he's going to be into the portage box because there's a 15-second penalty that's going to be going to his way. Let's go down to Doug Bird. He's down in the portage zone with Ann Stott.
The World Marathon Champs here on our home turf, it's an awesome feeling and awesome experience.
Now, talking about home turf, of course, paddlers that obviously live here and train here are going to have, I would say, some inside knowledge on this particular course, because there are things like shadow spots. There's definitely places where it gets deeper and the boat runs a bit smoother. Do you think that it's going to be having much of a difference in terms of the way that people approach this, or do you think they're just going to have to take it as it comes?
I think it's definitely going to be an advantage to the guys who train here. They know exactly where their spots are. But the top paddlers from around the world, they all
of speed on that picture, and that's the timing. You see so little drama with the paddle in the water. Paddle in so cleanly, out cleanly. There's no drama, no fuss. Everything that's going into that boat is coming out in terms of speed. It's
super impressive, and you've got to assume that they've drilled this and they're good for 20Ks like this, because it was a big move to go early on. They're looking super confident. I've noticed every time they've come to a turn, there's been a discreet look over the shoulder. They know what the gamble is, and it's just reaffirmed that this plan is working.
And I think at this stage, describing it as a gamble might be a bit ambitious, Dave. I mean, that's a gamble with the odds in your favour now, because they're miles ahead. Literally, they're going to finish minutes and minutes ahead if this rate carries on. That's the chase pack, or chase pair, of Nagy and Korsos. They're used to winning these races. This will be a little bit of a new territory for them, and you can see it's confused them. They wouldn't normally allow Great Britain to lead, because we're just not on the same, in the same territory as them speed-wise. It's fantastic for our girls just to be there, and with Korsos and Nagy, all they've got to do is hold them on the portages. But this is the lead boat, and it's just phenomenal.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword for Korsos and Nagy. They need the British girls along for the ride at this stage. They need them to work together, but at the same time, Peters and Russell they'll be delighted to be in that company, but are they going to be able to keep the pace up?
Anytime Peters and Russell lead, they're going to be falling behind these two. We just don't, as much as they're great, they're third place and I love them, they're just not of the quality of that lead boat. So anytime that Korsos and Nagy let our girls lead, that gap is going to open wider and wider.
And I suspect the time is going to come where they're going to suddenly put down the hammer and say, we've got to go alone. If you've got any chance of challenging for that gold, which they probably would have fancied their chances coming to the drift this morning, they're going to have to drop them and,
I think
and
the
go
challenge
alone.
for gold is over. I think this has fallen well for the Great Britain girls, because the other girls aren't close enough to challenge. They're on a journey round. They know in their mind they can beat our girls. The gap from that pair back to the Italians in 4th place is also well over a minute now, and the gap behind the Italians to the chase pack of 4 is about another 40 seconds. So the medals look to be decided. I know that's ambitious to state that this early on, but there's silver and bronze in shot now. Gold is out of sight and almost out of mind now for those two. They're going to come in for their first portage.
So Emis Kulhalmir and Olga Bako. Handsome lead at this stage. Zofia Korzos and Victoria Nagy with the Team GB crew of Freya Peters and Emma Russell. The chasing Teresa Izzotto shrugged off rather mercilessly with Natalia Campagna. And then the bunch behind them. Into the portage they come. I'm taking as given that these girls, based on their battle plan coming into it, have done plenty of time rehearsing this portage. They're not under any pressure. No rush. Boat comes out so easily at the start of this portage. Canter up the short grass embankment.
When you're not stressed, it's so easy to make portages look tidy. It's the element of stress that ruins portaging. You see the kids and the seniors in practicing here through the weekend, and everyone does it really nicely. They all look like they're in control of themselves, their boat, their paddles. But the moment the pressure's on, we saw paddles going in the water yesterday from experienced paddlers. Kaita purchased paddles in the water. We saw Hungarians leaving their paddles so far away they couldn't reach them when they get in. You see people swimming at the portage, putting their boats over the top of others. But when it's like this and there's no stress, it's just unison from start to finish.
And I must admit, let's go back to Adam Varga's interview after the race. When we asked him about his game plan, he just said, I don't want to be in the portages with other paddlers. That's why he went it alone.
I mean, it's some luxury to be able to choose whether you go into a portage with other paddlers or not. Yeah, it's just, most people don't get that choice.
So Kulhalmir and Bako continuing their solo charge, and it's super impressive at the front of this race. There's the chasing bunch with Korzos and Nagy and Peters and Russell as they come into the portage zone for the first time.
So fingers crossed for our girls here. They really need to come out of this portage with the Hungarians. The more laps they can do, stuck with them, the better. Our girls portage well. They're out much quicker than the Hungarians. They're going to be running side by side. And I think we're going to be safe here. So these two crews are going to get in together.
Both crews running this portage beautifully, actually. There's nothing gained or lost. They should get down to the water together. The Hungarian girls putting in a little bit of a burst, opting to run it long.
I think
the British girls being wise, they're going to take it right to the end of the jetty.
Slowed down because they thought the Hungarians were going to run
Yeah.
long, and then they didn't. So the British girls have taken that little opportunity. They need to get away fairly quickly because they need to go with the Hungarians. It's going to be hard to get the acceleration going. They're going to have to get on that tail, and they're going to do it quickly, or life is going to get very hard very quickly for the Great Britain crew. Get on the tail there, girls.
Korzos and Nagy have got a plan here. We talked about the need for speed and to get away. Try and narrow the deficit with the other
And
Hungarian.
that gap is going to open and open. It's job done for Korsi and Nagos. Korzos and Nagy, rather.
Well, that's a game changer for Peters and Russell.
So frustrating for the Great Britain team there. If they hadn't changed their mind and gone in front, maybe they would have got in with them. But such a tough call. So now it's Hungary out at the front alone. Hungary 2 alone. Great Britain alone. And the Italians here also alone. And they're being all chased down by a group of 4 with 2 South Africans, the Spaniards, and the Danish.
So, Izzotto and Campagna running the portage. I noticed as they came into the portage, both of them were looking over their shoulders to see where that chasing group was. And there it is. There it is.
They've got a strong chasing group. Yep. This chasing group could pick up all 3 of those individual boats, I think.
Quickly out of the water are Sorensen and Maredi.
South Africans in all sorts of trouble. There's a lot of water at the front of that boat. They're emptying out. It seems to take an age for the water to run out of your boat when you do that.
The frustration. So that's Christy McKenzie and Sabina Laurie, who's probably the stronger of the two crews, and that's going to shrug them off the back. Where did that water come from, Anstott?
Yeah, a bit of pity there, because we saw Christy doing so well on the portages yesterday. But I think what must have happened is either the pump's not working properly, or maybe in the excitement that's not pumping as well. But I think they're still in this race. Let's not write them off just yet. Both South African boats very strong. So I'm sure the bunch will get back together, although it's quite stretched out at the moment.
It's Sorensen Moretti led out from the portage. They're going quite hard. A well-drilled crew, Spaniards and the South Africans together, and Christy McKenzie is going to close them down. No trouble at all by the look of it. But the Danes could be away on their own. So it's a processional race, this one. Individual boats toughen it out.
I must say what really impressed me with that first Hungarian boat we saw with the Hungarian junior girls yesterday, they struggled a bit on the portages. But those girls were slick, so they're not just slick on the paddling. Their takeout was good, their run was really fast, and their put-in was exactly perfect. The way they pulled away from the jetty, they didn't waste 1 second. So they're really, really well prepared for this race. So I think they're going to hang on to this lead. They look really, really meticulous and very professional.
Yeah, it's a race that's changed in nature quite dramatically over that first portage. What looked like a safe third for Great Britain is now hanging in the balance. You got a very strong Danish crew, Sorensen Moretti there, broken away from the chase pack of 4. And in front of them is the Italian crew. There they are. Yep. That's Isotta and Campagna. They do not look as strong as the Danes, so they're going to be swallowed up by that group of 4 behind them. And in front of the Italians is Great Britain now, toughing it out alone, and they also are very, very vulnerable now in 3rd position. Out in front, Hungary 1 and Hungary 2, not looking quite so vulnerable, to be fair.
Well, it's a race for bronze now, and it's going to be interesting because the Italians are looking unsettled. They're looking a little bit jumpy. There's definitely heat coming from Sorensen and Moretti. And if that chasing bunch with the 2 South African crews on it can reform along with Garcia and Marino, then we could have some fun over the next 2 or 3 laps.
Basically going to pan out to be really interesting. Those gaps are going to close, and it's whether the race finishes before the gaps close totally. These 2 are away and clear. No one is going to catch them. That's your winner right there. Behind them, Korsos and Nagy. We've seen them so many times in this position at the front of the race, but now they're solo in 2nd place. They won't be caught, I don't think. Well, I'd put my money on them not being caught, to be fair. And but after that, it's a free-for-all in the background. So front of the C1 race,
Zoltan Kolazar.
We've got Kolsar there. We got from Poland is going to be Patrick Gluzer. So we've got 2 poles there. Actually, that's not the front of the C1 race at all. We've got we've got 2 paddlers in front of them, which I imagine is Dory and Maciel. Yep, that's Dory and Maciel as the leaders. So Maciel from Portugal, Dory from Hungary. Oh, Maciel and Kolsar, sorry.
It's
so
Maciel and Kolsar at the
Hungary.
front. The 3 at the front include Farina, and then there's a gap back down to that chasing bunch. So Korzos and Nagy now sitting comfortably in silver medal position as they come around that still top turn can. I think they'll still be playing mind games with how they landed up in 2nd, so far behind. They come into the event with a fantastic pedigree.
Yeah, they really would have had in mind, even if they know those other girls are faster than them, they would have had in mind that they wanted to be on their wash for the first few laps at least.
Into the portage they come. Remember, there's also going to be a time penalty. So you'll see one of the seaboat paddlers being
So
called into the
Dory
penalty box.
is first through. And Maciel with him. That's your 1-2. Just getting in behind them is the Italian, Farina. The gap is about 30, 40 metres between the lead two and Farina.
Colzar coming through the portage. Some of the sea paddlers. Gluza
It looks like Bourgil is the one with the time penalty, and he would have expected to be in the medals. 7:11. Patrick Gluza is away with 7:04, which is Kolsar of Hungary. So it's
there he goes. He's out of the penalty box now. So a 15-second penalty for Mateusz Bourgil.
So it's Gluza and Kolsar.
Alejandro Rodriguez getting going in the colors of Colombia.
Colombian. And Bourgil. You would think he'd overhaul the Colombian, but whether he can get back to his compatriot and the second Hungarian is very much open to debate.
Meanwhile, back with the machine that is the Kolhalmian Bako combination. Oh, look at that all the time in the world. Let's have some juice, girls. Looks like they're actually taking a first sip of their juice for the day. Look at that. They've got time to burn. What a luxury. Carrying their juice in the boat.
It's not a bad position to be in, is it? Just to put your paddles down, have a sip of drink and carry on like a little tea break. So chase group of 4 going around the top turn. You've got 2 South Africans, the Spaniards and the Danes. Sorensen and Moretti making up the 4th boat in that group. But South Africa taking it to them out of the turn. The Spaniards and the Danes both struggling there.
It's very good for that bunch that Christine McKenzie and Sabina Laurie managed to get back on after a momentary scare where it looked like they might be shrugged off the back of that.
So that's second place in shot now. Korsos and Nagy. Another well-drilled K2 moving very, very nicely.
So Hungary grabbing 7 medals of the 12 on offer yesterday, and it looks like that medal swag is going to get bigger and bigger on day 2 of the World here at Campsdrift in Maritzburg.
What would be really good if we had a drone shot of all those individuals tailing out behind these 2 Hungarians, just to get a relative position on who's falling back, who's making ground. There's your leaders.
They've probably got fluids for the entire race on board. There was just when they stopped to go and put the hydration system pipes into their mouths, they took a little bit of fluid on board. They've dropped it, so it's also going to make the portage a little bit simpler. Great overhead view of the girls flying down Campsdrift under the bridge that takes us over Campsdrift Road. That'll take them down to in front of the grandstands here, and it is a super impressive spectacle when you see a K2 purring along like that. It looks effortless, but it's not, and that's high speed.
Yeah, they're paddling along at a very good speed, and like I said yesterday, the TV shot doesn't give you the feeling of how fast that boat is actually moving. When you see them in real life here, you can see just how effortlessly and how much power is actually going into that boat and how fast it's moving. It's poetry to watch.
And there's the shot we were hoping for. So behind Korsos and Nagy, that's the Great Britain crew, Peters and Russell. They look like they've not lost too much ground since the portage. The Italians are in imminent danger of being swallowed up by the 2 South African crews who are leading that chase group of 4. But for now, 1, 2 and 3 seem reasonably well clear. It's going to be a bit of a chase down for that group of 4. They must be sensing the opportunity of a medal at least.
And you saw on screen the splits up at the top turn count. It was 40 seconds, but I'm pretty sure that is narrowing all the time. So it's not if, but rather when that they do get caught by the chase group. Kolhalmian Bako
Korsos and Nagy in shot. I think they're not even looking forward now. They're finishing off their race in second place. They know it. They're not in with a shout of closing the gap in front of them, which is well over a minute.
It's going to be a pretty solitary remainder of the morning for both of these Hungarian crews. They've raced themselves into races of their own.
Peters and Russell there.
Same story. They need to consolidate that last medal. That'll be a big medal for them.
It's a long, long way to go still.
Yeah.
And they've got to make that mental adjustment from getting a ride around with the Hungarians to doing their own work. And they're going to know every turn that the group behind is coming.
I must say, I've just been out in the sun there now, and it's definitely a lot cooler at this stage of the day than it was yesterday. So at least, hopefully, the energy reserves will last a bit longer. So I think there's a chance of that British boat hanging on in these conditions. But any hotter, they'd have to reconsider their game plan. But with the current temperature, I think it's realistic that they hang on to that third place. But they're going to have to work hard to keep the pace going.
I must admit, one of the striking images from yesterday was Borgotti just blowing out in the heat and landing up on the bank, getting attention from some of the marshals here. That was an ever-present danger, but it does fold forward to today. There are a lot of athletes on the start list today who were racing in the heat yesterday, which means that your ability to recover and rehydrate and sleep properly overnight is going to determine how good your day two is.
Borgotti himself is listed
He's
to
one
race
of
in
them.
the junior men's K2. I don't know whether that will happen or not, but he is penciled in at least to be on the start line today.
Korsos and Nagy chasing in second position.
It is a huge gap behind the Great Britain crew, back to the Italians, and then another 20 seconds or so back to the chase group. So Great Britain looking reasonably safe at the moment, I would say, in third position. They're moving at least as well as the groups behind them. So 1, 2, 3, all gone past us in commentary, down towards the bottom turn, and 4, 5, 6, and 7 are still to come under the bridge to our left. So Korsos, Nagy heading down, just about to go around the bottom turn. And while they go around the bottom turn, their compatriots, Kahami and Bako, are going to be entering the portage. That's going to happen all at the same time. So here's the girls coming into the portage for portage 2.
Under absolutely no pressure.
Beautifully done. The front paddler took the boat out first. The rudder's always safe then.
The back paddler's got one ankle in the cockpit to make sure that the boat doesn't slide away. I thought that was an accident on the first portage. It's not. I think it's clearly part of that drill. As you see, they've got their fluids on board with them in the boat, so you're not going to see them come through the feed zone probably at any stage during the race, unless they actually deplete their onboard reserves. But temperatures today in Pietermaritzburg far kinder on the paddlers than they were yesterday, where we saw that 36, 37 degree temperature certainly playing a role in the race as it played itself out. Kolhami and Bako.
Away they go, tidily away, and totally untroubled.
Look through the generation of Hungarians. With Renata Shea, you must be looking into the next generation about who's going to move beyond that, and the depth is just awe-inspiring.
It's awe-inspiring, but to get through to actually beat someone like Renata Shea, you've seen Van der Kisly come up over the last few years, and you had her penciled in to go straight past and beat Renata, maybe by this year, even last year. But it doesn't happen because those top paddlers are top paddlers for a reason. And although you can come up quickly and you can make huge progress, to actually crack that final jump is huge.
We'll go back to Europeans and see what sort of form Renata was in. There's absolutely no sign of the superstar backing off. Back with Kolhami and Bako.
And into the portage, Korsos and Nagy. Untroubled in second. Running tidily through the portage. Again, not coming in for refreshment.
It's far less nerve-jangling watching the girls run at the K2 as opposed to the K1s, where we held our breath as we watched those understeers bouncing and bumping along the grass. See the girls happy to run carrying the boat at the cockpit. Some of the boats are fitted with handles either side of the cockpit, some of them immediately alongside the cockpit.
You also saw how this crew put the tail of the boat in first.
Yeah.
First crew put the front in first, and then it's very hard to get the back end in, get the rudder over the edge of the landing stage. So these two much tidier, probably more marathon experience. I'm suspecting those front two, and I'm saying this with no confident knowledge at all, but I suspect those front two are sprinters that haven't done as much marathon paddling in their past, not quite as tidy on the portages, but still very, very good. Peters and Russell now on their portage, also running well. And behind them is a big gap back to the Italians, who are still holding off the chase pack, which is now reduced to 3.
So Isotta and Campagna under threat from the chasers. If they do get swallowed up by that chasing pack and it becomes 4 again, I venture to suggest that it's still not going to pose any threat whatsoever to the two British girls, who have just retooled the race plan and I think have got a pretty decent idea of what to do for the next 45, 50 minutes.
I hope you're right, Dave, about the British crew not being under threat. It is a big gap back to the what we're calling the chase group of 3. I mean, that's probably 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes even. And I think that's going to be enough to allow the British girls to finish this race untroubled. Korsos and Nagy just putting their paddles down for a second there as they head up towards the top turn.
Also hugging the left-hand side, and we talked about it yesterday, that is probably, with the exception of the left-hand corner, the shallowest part of the drift.
I'd say it probably is the shallowest part of the drift, but there are also some shallow sections heading up towards the top can above the bridge if you go too far left, and as well as coming down if you come down too far left. So there are a few shallow spots, but they've actually dug it out quite nicely a few weeks ago when they dug out the corner. So it's actually not too bad. It used to be a lot worse in the years gone by, but at the moment it's perfect for marathon racing.
So you saw the Italians coming through, and this is the chase group, which includes both South African crews and the Danes. And the South Africans are running way better than the Italians were. The Italians are going to be caught imminently as they pull out from the portage. You can see the South Africans running down the bank. The Danes are in trouble. If these two South African crews get away together, it's going to be very hard for the Danes to match them. Danes have run long. It's a good idea. They may just get out in contact, but the Italians are going to be swallowed up within the next 5 minutes, I would think.
It's Amy Pickett and Caitlin McKenzie getting away first. Christy McKenzie with Sabina Laurie right on their rudder. Sorensen and Moretti there. They've got a little bit of work to do to get back on that wash. Amy Pickett ran that portage beautifully. And Christy McKenzie with her doozy pedigree would have been expected to be the dominant character there, but Amy Pickett, big tall girl, does all her training here at the Drift. Ipworth girl. And I think the supporters that have got all the marker pen writings all over their arms and foreheads are out to support her.
So the graphics got the Italians 15 seconds ahead of the chase pack, but that gap is much smaller now than 15 seconds.
Yep, that gap is concertinaing all the time.
A little look over the shoulder from the Italians there. They know their time alone is coming to an end.
The vultures are circling, I'm afraid. So the lead is coming up to the still top turn now. And these splits are now almost becoming irrelevant. I think it's an unassailable lead. It's pretty much a victory march all the way to the line now for Kahalmi and Bako. Doesn't make what they're doing any less impressive, though. Must be such a great feeling to come to each of those turns, and there's no panic about that look over the right shoulder. But
each time they look back at the turns, the gap is bigger and bigger, and yeah, untroubled, totally untroubled at the front. You can see she's pumping the water out. She's having a drink as and when they want. It's they're totally in control of their own destiny. And that destiny looks like it's going to be to get a gold medal in just a couple more laps' time. There's the Italians, South Africans chasing them down. Italians still doing well to fight them off.
The chase definitely coming from Amy Peckett and Caitlin McKenzie. They were the first into the water at the end of that portage. Christy McKenzie and Sabina Laurie right alongside them. Sorensen and Moretti staying with them.
Soto and Campagna definitely not in the mood for waiting.
No.
That's for sure. They're not going to wait for them to close the gap. They're going to make it as hard as they can. Just coming up towards the top turn.
It's a horrible feeling, isn't it? You feel like you've got a target on your back. You feel the red dot of the laser. That you know they're coming. It's just a case of when. Some of the under-23 C1 paddlers right in the middle of the girls K2 race.
I think that's Kortsos and Nagy in the K2. Peters and Russell in the background. And yep, at the top of your screen there's your leaders, Kahalmi and Bako already on their way back.
Yeah.
And I think there's a possibility that Kahalmi and Bako are going to start lapping some of the tail enders in this race. The Australians who took an early swim, they're toughing it out there, but they're only 2 or 3 minutes ahead of the current leaders, but 1 lap behind.
It goes back to the chat we had earlier about the strength of sprint paddling and the ability to take your sprint base into a marathon base. I think the Hungarians are blessed with the depth of paddlers, but I think a sprint base that is so strong, and a lot of the training culture and a lot of the youngsters that start in the sport aspire to be principally great Olympic sprinters. They probably get into a boat for a first time trying to emulate some of the sprint greats that have come out of the Hungarian program.
I think you're talking pretty much the same thing either way. You're looking at efficiency. Now, you can use that efficiency to go fast, or you can use that efficiency to go for a long time. But you need that basic efficiency in your stroke to do anything well. And these girls and the guys we saw yesterday clearly have that technical efficiency that allows them pretty much to do any aspect of the sport.
Well, for a long time, the Hungarian way was regarded as the gospel when it came to technique and training. There's been a significant amount of pushback. I know certainly in our particular part of the world, there was a desire to try and take in an Australian way when the Australian sprinters were trying to get successful. The Australian philosophy is also far broader in allowing the paddlers to do things like surf ski and marathon racing, where the Hungarians and certainly the Hungarian coaches have always felt that if you're going to be a sprinter or a marathon paddler, then you dare not dabble in something like river racing or surf ski paddling, because that's certainly going to mess with your technique.
While you're chatting there, Dave, I mean, if you're in a race and you think you've got time to stop and blow your nose, yeah, you know you've got time on your hands.
It's not really a race, is it? Well, you've earned the luxury to be able to blow your nose in the middle of a race then.
To be fair, it is a much better look than having it all dribbling down onto your top lip at the finish. So if you're coming in for a medal, you don't need those photos. So keeping your nose clean while you're out there has obviously become a big motivation for these two.
I'm going to put Ant Stott on the spot here, because his K2 partner of choice, Matt Bowman, is one of the great surf ski paddlers down here. But the one done deal is that when Matt comes in at the end of a surf ski race, it's not pretty, is it? And I'm sure you don't want to be seen in the same photo as him.
Yeah, no, Matt puts his heart on the line in every race he does, and I don't know where that stuff comes from, but it's a bit disgusting, but it gets everywhere. It's not nice to talk about, but you can see he hasn't had the time to clean his face before it cuts into the finish, but he races hard and he goes all the way and he gives it everything.
Meanwhile, the Italians have been caught. On their side is Mackenzie and Laurie, and just about to close that gap also is Mackenzie and Peckett.
Yeah, the two Mackenzie cousins. Nice tight turn there from Christy McKenzie and Sabina Laurie. Contrasted with a unnecessarily wide turn by the Italian girls. Caitlin McKenzie and Amy Peckett zooming in on that diamond. Olga Bako and Emis Kohalmi.
So Korsos and Nagy 2.25 minutes behind Kohalmi and Bako.
Just over 1:10 back to the British girls.
And then another 1:20 back to the chase pack, which is now 3 boats. 2 of those very motivated to close up for a bronze medal, I'm sure.
So two contrasting races happening on the water here. As far as the girls' K2 race is concerned, it really is turning. In fact, that middle race is largely run with Kahalmi and Bako running away, Korzas and Nagy 2.25 minutes behind, and the British girls, Peters and Russell, currently comfortably in the bronze position. But the contrast is happening in the C1 under-23 men's race, because that race is certainly wide open, and there's every prospect that the second half of that one is going to turn out to be a real thriller, Ivan.
Yeah, at the portage below us, we just had Kolsar and Bourgil come through, and the Colombian Rodriguez just behind them. Out in front, we've got Maciel from Portugal and Dori from Hungary, and we'll give you more information on them as the camera picks them up.
It is confirmation at the last timing split. It was definitely Maciel, Dori, Gluza and Farina who were sitting together, and then Kolzar in the chase bunch with Bourgil. We'll keep track of that the next time they come into shot and the cameras pick them up.
Drone shot of the junior women's K2 leaders. Just about to overtake one of the Spaniards in the C1. And there's second place in the K2. And the Australian Joaquim in C1 there. And behind him, Nakajima from Japan.
Part of a really big contingent of Japanese paddlers. Exciting to see them here. Venture to suggest when we saw them at the opening ceremony that they were probably the most excited team to be here. Looked like kids at Christmas time as they came into the hall.
No one does excitement like the Japanese.
They're fantastic tourists. Wherever they go in the world, they just seem to sort of suck the marrow out of the bone. They just really take full advantage of every opportunity. Korzas and Nagy, the chasers in the girls' K2 race. The far side of the drift still very brown. We've only just emerged from a long and very dry winter here, the second year of a rolling drought in this part of the territory. So you'll just see the first signs of green creeping into the plants on the opposite side. It tells the tale of a continent that's been ravaged by the La Nina version of the drought cycle. It's supposed to be coming to an end, and we're certainly looking forward to that as we head into a summer season that is heavily reliant from a canoeing point of view. So we're back with the leaders in the C1 race, and this is turning out to be a really exciting event. This is
Bourgil and Kolsar. I think they're third and fourth in the C1 race at the moment, I think. The leaders possibly already gone round the top turn. I'm not sure how far ahead they are. We'll get a graphic on screen at some stage. There's the chase pack in the women's K2 across the top of the screen. Italy, South Africa and South Africa. This is the fight for bronze in the C1.
Oh, we talked about the sort of speed being developed by these girls at the moment. There's Korzas and Nagy, the drone giving you a perspective far better than the land-based camera of just the sort of speed they're generating in that K2. In fact, they're raising the intensity of what they're doing. Can't really imagine that they think there's a chance of reeling in the girls ahead of them.
It's amazing how the drone shot does give you that real impression of speed that a static camera can't. It's really impressive to see how well they move those boats.
They've definitely got a plan. They've got a plan to raise the intensity here. Can't imagine what they've got in mind, because it's 2.25 minutes on that last split. The girls in front of them are out of sight.
Gap to the girls in front. They're actually crossing over now. So as Korzas and Nagy come down towards us, on the other side of the river, coming upstream towards the portage. Here we go. In sight now is Kahalmi and Bako. So the gap is still over 2 minutes. But the gap back to Peters and Russell is also opening up. Korzas and Nagy putting a lot of time and distance between them and Great Britain. And it's going to be a long journey still. But the leaders coming in tidily into the portage. Front of the boat needs to come out before the back, which is done nicely.
Yep.
And up the slope they run. Get onto the level ground at the top, and then they'll come towards us in the commentary position. We're just at the put-in.
Fair question, and Stott. Is there any point in trying to run in sync, keeping your footsteps? I know as a doozy paddler that's a separate debate, but if you're running a 100-meter portage like that, is there any value in trying to run in sync?
I think there probably is, Dave, and it just stops the boat bouncing. It just helps, exactly like paddling in the K2. It just helps everything run a lot more smoothly if you're running in sync. It's something that happens naturally, I think.
I'd agree. I think you just fall into stride, because otherwise the boat kind of jiggles and doesn't move well. So, yeah, you fall into stride naturally. Girls away well from the portage.
I've known some great K2 partnerships come completely unraveled because one can't run at the same pace. Particularly, it's always the back person's fault. It's always the back person's fault.
No, I think it's always the other person's fault.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether the other person is in the back or the front. It's always their fault.
Well, let's go there. It's like saying your partner's the one with the lean. I think no two human
I
beings
tell
are
you,
the same.
every partner I ever had a lean. And
And you were perfect.
I was fine.
Yeah.
It was never me. But every partner I ever had a lean. It's really difficult in a K2 partnership when that sort of thing happens, is to try and move your brain away from the lean and get on with the job. You start obsessing, you start blaming, and you got to stay away from the blame and just try and correct it as best you can. But there's the Italians leading the two South African crews as they overtake Meister from Argentina in the C1 race. The Danes off the back of that group of three now by maybe 40 seconds.
I don't see a real hunt mentality in this pack here. If there was any intensity of trying to challenge for certainly a medal, it doesn't seem to be there.
The Great Britain crew beat the Italians at the Europeans anyway, so maybe they're faster than them on the water. There's certainly not a lot to choose between them. The gap's still over a minute and they're running out of time. Here's Korsos and Nagy coming into their portage. Absolutely no doubt they're going to hold on to their position.
And
they're moving way better than the crews behind them.
And take us through the technicalities of coming into that portage fast. You normally take quite a sharp angle in, and then it's that back brace on the deep water side.
I think one of the biggest risks coming into the portage is coming in too slowly and slowing down too early. You've got to try and keep that boat speed up right until the very end, because you don't want to waste any time. So you come in pretty much full speed, sometimes even a bit faster. Very important to break the boat down, break and slow the boat down as quickly as possible, so they're probably about a 45 angle into the portage, and then dig their outside paddle in, and the whole boat swings around and stops up against the jetty. A big thing as well, not to lose contact with the boat or the paddle when you jump out. So you'll see that back foot lingering a little bit longer to make sure the boat doesn't slide away, hand in contact. You'll see the people that lose contact with the paddle, sometimes they get knocked away or kicked away by one of the other competitors. So just keep in contact with your equipment, and the same thing at the put-in.
It's a fairly basic, it's a process that you have to do over and over again, just like anything else you want to learn well. And you've got to get that process so deeply ingrained that when there is stress and when there are other people around you, you still do the same thing. And it's only when things go badly wrong, and it goes badly wrong very quickly, that you see who's well drilled and who isn't.
So here's the chasing trio. The two South African boats just off the wash as they come into the portage. Now that's interesting.
Peters and Russell, third position, coming in at that 45-degree angle that Ant just told us about. It allows you to keep the speed very high, and then the braking, because the braking is so heavy, it turns the boat out anyway. If you come in too shallow, it's quite hard to stop the boat. You end up with your hand running along the bank, and it's all gets a little bit chaotic. So they're just catching Nakajima of Japan on the portage. Just putting in at the portage now from Australia, it's Joaquim in the C1. We'll see him as the girls run down. So there's the nose of Joaquim's boat, the yellow C1. But Peters and Russell tidily in and tidily away. Third place so far, seemingly secure. One more portage to go for these girls.
Going to throw this to and start with this deep jetty put in here, and we're about to head into seeing the men's K1 and the women's K1, the sharp end of the sport. The chances of that moving jump in at the end of a portage, somebody keeping that boat moving and jumping into the cockpit.
I've seen a lot of guys trying jumping into their boats without holding onto the jetty and sort of surfing off. A lot of guys are doing it in training, so it's high risk as we watch the chasing ladies, junior girls jumping out here. Lots going on. Shame Christy McKenzie still struggling. The pump's not working or something. A lot of water on the boat. There shouldn't be that much water on the boat. Amy and Caitlin running really hard on the portage. You can see they're really going for it. All the way through, you can see they're pushing really hard. South African flag in the background, the Epworth girls as well. They've had a hard run here. You
They've
can see
opened
they've
up
trained
quite a
really
gap.
hard on this portage. Perfect put in and getting away cleanly. You can see they've done this many, many times.
So you saw Mackenzie and Laurie there emptying the boat out, and it's so hard to be calm enough to let the water actually come out of the boat. You tend to tip the boat up one way, up the other way. Don't give time for the water to actually come out. And you're still... So here's the front of the men's C1. We'll move away from the women for a bit. So we're looking at leading there is
Gluza at the front.
Patrick Gluza from Poland.
Just behind him is Balas Dori. This is turning out to be a real humdinger for this under-23 C1 title.
And Maciel from Portugal. They're the front three. So it's a good race there at the front. All the medals still open to offer. As Dory takes the lead. On his left, 7:10 is Maciel from Portugal. And on his right is Patrick Gluza from Poland.
So two completely contrasting races. The under-23 C1's turning out to be an absolute cliffhanger as they head into the second half of their race. There's been very little to separate these three, and the contrast, of course, is the two Hungarian boats separated by 2 minutes. That gold and silver apparently already decided in the junior K2 race.
You see Patrick Gluza move up on the left-hand side of that group. You wouldn't have expected that in a K1 race. He'd have come to the right, but that's because of the side they paddle on. They find it much easier to wash hang on the paddle side of the boat, so he's obviously done that for his own convenience. Even so, he's struggling a little bit, maybe in the shallows there. These paddles go in deep. You can see he's in all sorts of trouble at the back of the group there. And there off the back is Farina from Italy. He's about 40 seconds adrift of the lead three. And Gluza has had to compromise and come in behind the other two just to get enough depth of water to paddle in. But it's Dory, world champion last year.
Cutting back now to the race for 5th, 6th and 7th in the C1 race.
Tight formation paddling there. None of the three look comfortable there. So we got Kolsar from Hungary, Borgil from Poland, and Rodriguez.
We're back at the front now with Balas Dori in the yellow
from
C1.
Colombia.
Sergio Mathil just on the inside of him.
Now they've opened out. Maciel gone to the left side of the group again.
You can see how those boats snake around on the water. It makes it really tricky if you're in a tight formation like that. Patrick Gluza on the back. So Portugal, Poland, Hungary. Familiar sight of that white Hungarian shirt at the front of a race. Coming into the bottom Eurosteel turn can. Balat Dori leading them in on the inside of those turn buoys. Just that momentary drag of the back of the blade to keep the boat turning around tight on those turn cans. Put the pressure on the paddlers on the outside. Sergio Mathil sticking to him like glue. Patrick Gluza having to work just a little harder to stay with the front two. Coming into the portage once again. Gluza running wide, leaving himself more and more work to do.
Here we go, back to the front of the women's K2. And the procession continues with Kahalmi and Bako still looking good. very strong at the front of the women's K2 race. No doubt where the medals are going at the moment.
It's been relentless. It's been like this all morning. It's been mechanical. It's just been super impressive. It's just the Adam Varga experience all over again.
Adam, of course, we're going to see in action again later today in the junior K2, teaming up with the Hungarian second strongest junior to go in that K2 race. So it's going to be Varga and Vakassi with a possible further demonstration paddle this afternoon.
Ivan, you talked about K2 combinations and why they click, and sometimes it's hard to put your finger on exactly why some combinations click and some don't, but it definitely helps if you're physiologically similar, if you've got the same sort of frame, you've got the same sort of arm length, you've got the same sort of natural gait about it, and these two girls look like they've been cut from the same cloth.
They do, but you do see other extremes in K2 as well with, so as we come, sorry, we'll go back to that, but it's the lead C1s into the portage. It's Dory out first, followed by Maciel, followed by Gluza. Dory choosing to come in for a drink, as is Maciel. All three, in fact, have come in for a drink here. Reasonably well organised from all three teams.
All three of them opting actually for a bottle to be put in the bottom of the boat rather than a bag being dropped around their necks.
It's Gluza is just in danger of losing contact, but he's run long, and it looks like he'll come out with Maciel.
In fact, Dory has been gifted a bit of a lead here. The Hungarian is now getting away in that yellow C1. Maciel the next on the water. Gluza right alongside him, but Dory definitely the quickest onto the water at the end of that portage. And for the first time, that front three is broken up, and the Hungarian Balázs Dory is now clear as he heads up onto the top turn cannon here at Kampsdrift. That's the chasing bunch of Sergio Maciel and Patrick Gluza.
And the lead K2 coming down. They've done their last top turn. They're coming down for their final portage.
They've been robotic. It's been poker face the whole way. There's been no motion, and there's been no need to be. I mean, I guess that's a symptom that your race plan has just worked out 100% on the day. Coming down past the crowd here at Kampsdrift. Great drone shot of these two girls as they go purring down to the bottom turn hand. Kolhalmi and Bako gives you a super perspective at just what sort of speed they've had that white K2 purring at all morning. And often the sign of a crew that's really done the homework in terms of the base training is being able to set a tempo. And if you're feeling good and if that boat is running, you can just keep it up. It'd be fascinating to be able to track the exact speed they've been going at and whether they've managed to just keep that metronomic pace going throughout the morning. It's got a gold medal written.
It's beautiful to look at. I mean, it's so well organised. Both paddlers paddling pretty much identically. You
just
see the drive from the shoulders. So it all starts from the foot. Your foot's your fixed point. You can drive from there. You see them almost standing off that leg as they pull. The shoulders push down to match the legs pushing up. All the power goes into the boat, and the boat just lifts and goes forward. It's just tidy, well-organised, well-drilled paddling.
It's such a powerful stroke, and that boat is just sitting dead and true in the water. There's hardly a rock or a roll in it. This is the second place crew of Korzos and Nagy, more than 2.25 minutes behind.
And we talked about it yesterday. The connection in this boat isn't quite as good as in the front boat. You see how the boat, when they paddle on the left there, the boat leans to the right slightly. So the connection and the strength isn't there, and that's why they're behind the other crew.
Got to say, they're also looking a little tired at this stage in the game. And that's the third place GB boat.
And they must be sensing now, with only one portage to go, that medal is getting closer and closer. They'll have had a look back at the top turn. They'll have seen the gap between them and the chase pack, which is the two South Africans and the Italians. and they'll have some sort of idea how much room they've got to play with.
Turn time for the last time around the Eurosteel buoy for Kohalmi and Bako. And that's the Australian K2. We talked about them being hunted down just in front of them. Started off with a nightmarish swim right off the start pontoon. And the leaders are now hunting them down.
I think the Australians are just going to survive the indignity of being lapped. Because if they can get to the portage before the Hungarians, which they're going to do, they're going to be able to finish the course.
And there's a great marker because the second place crew of Portages and Nagi are just coming under the bridge here at Campsdrift and in front of the grandstand. And at the same stage, the leaders, Kohalmi and Bako, are homing in on their final portage. So there is a cavernous amount of water between first and second. Not that that diminishes from the spectacle, it actually amplifies just how well Kohalmi and Bako have executed their race plan today.
I mean, these two have been dominant. This is last year's world champions here in view, and they've been handed it on a properly been handed it today by their teammates, Kohalmi and Bako. And they're going to be passing the portage going downstream at the same time as their compatriots come into the portage, coming upstream, and that gap is significant.
There they come down past the start pontoons. At the same stage as the leaders, Kohalmi and Bako, head into the portage. So it's an awful lot of water, and you can see there's no urgency in that pace. I think at this stage you start worrying about the reserves of fuel left in the tank to get you through the remainder of this last full lap and then that last half lap. But here we are following the leading ladies crew of Kohalmi and Bako into the portage. We have the privilege of watching it from the sky this time.
If we can have these shots in the later races and the closing stages, you actually feel like you're doing the portage with the girls now. You're coming into the portage with them. We're going to run with them and get in with them. And it's so great to have shots like this to talk about. You can see the drone in the background there, following them from the riverside.
It's been flawless. In fact, there are very few K1 or K2 crews that can walk away from any race that we've seen so far to say it's been flawless. But I can't think of a paddle that's been put wrong by these two girls for the duration of this race.
It's been a demonstration, the same as it was yesterday with Adam Varga. Yeah. And yeah, it's a wake-up call for a lot of the other paddlers. You know what you've got to match now. So they're tidally into the boat for the last time. I'm pretty confident that I've been crossing off the portages as they go today. And I've just crossed off number 4. 4 portages, 5 laps for these girls today. So it's up to the short turn and back.
And the ability to get that boat up to full speed when they get away from the portage is so impressive. This is the second place crew on screen now, Nagi and Korsos. So they're turning at that Eurosteel bottom turn can for the last time as they head into the portage. And in the distance, they'll see their compatriots, Kohalmi and Bako, just cantering away with the gold. And I'm sure at this stage they'll be focused on silver and finishing them off in style, but I'm sure for much of the race, the gears in the mind will have been chugging. Just how did we land up with this in this position? They'll take a 1-2 for Hungary, as has been done already on numerous occasions in this race. But they're heading into the portage for their final portage. Really good crowd that's gathered once again at Campsdrift and Pietermaritzburg. Can't wait for the weekend because the buzz is already out for the big race on Saturday afternoon. And I suspect there's going to be a pretty Colosseum-like atmosphere here at Campsdrift.
In front of those two girls there, you got Davidov from Ukraine. You would have expected possibly a better result from him today. He was 3rd last year at the World Championships, but he's way, way off the pace today in the C1. So not to be for him. Here's the leaders in that C1 race. Dory has maintained that small lead he got at the portage with Masil and Gluza working together to try and close him down. But it looks like a significant gap.
They should also be heading down for their final lap.
No, they've got one extra lap to do in the C1. So they've got 2 portages to do in the C1 still. Final portage for the girls. Coming in hard to the portage.
Korsos and
Nagi.
Get a great perspective of just how big that jetty is. There's room for at least 5 K2s to pull up side by side.
Loads and loads of space out there. It's going to be really nice for the big races. and the big groups later on in the weekend. Korsos Nagy trotting through there, final portage.
Some appreciation from the crowd here. The defending champions that are going to come home in silver position.
Round the top turn, the short turn for the, well, first and last time is Kohalmi and Bako.
Gee, and you can see the springers in their step. That's their last turn. They'll have the finish line in their sights. They've got to come underneath the bridge here at Camps Drift Drive.
They're about 600 metres ahead of their compatriots. And were just too good today. There was nothing anyone else could do with them.
Yeah, when you overtake the silver place boat on the way down to claim gold, you know you've had a good day on the water. So Emis Kolhalmi and Olga Bako. It's been a superlative performance from them today. Lap 1 break. They absolutely pulled away with effortless ease, and that pace has not relented. Motoring down towards the bridge at Camps Drift Drive. Just beyond that, they've got about 300 meters to go to the finish line and that gold medal in the junior girls K2.
I was a bit confused by the K2 that was only just behind them, but they've still got their last portage to do. So these two on their final 300 meters now. It's a fairly straightforward process for them today. Time to have a drink, time to blow your nose, time to put your paddles down. They have time for pretty much anything out there this morning.
And I guess as any athlete aspiring to race, whether it's a regional race, a provincial qualifier, your national selection race with the Racing World Championships, you would dream of a race like this, going into a race with a bullish race plan and to see it pan out. Clearly two superbly conditioned girls came out here with a brave race plan, and it's just been beautiful.
Personally,
to
Dave,
watch.
paddling around the front on my own is not a dream for me. That's a nightmare. I would rather have some company. But yeah, you wouldn't be disappointed if it panned out for you like it has for these two today. Just as they finished, Freya and Peters and Russell are just getting in their final portages. They've got 1,000 meters to go, but the Hungarians, magnificent and dominant today, as they were yesterday.
And finally, the emotion. It's been poker-faced, it's been robotic, and finally the emotion explodes all over the faces of Olga Bako and Emis Kolhalmi.
So straightforward for them today, and it's almost been unkind what they've done to the rest of the field today. There's the chase group, as we've been describing them all through, are just entering their final portage, and the winners are already over the line, and you can watch them run through.
And we do get a glimpse of the C1 race here, where Sergio Maciel is now laying down the law.
That's 2 and 3 there in the C1s.
Yep.
We're just going to look forward to Ben Story. There's Ben Story just ahead of the second place K2. For the South Africans running through the portage with the Italians now in 4th, 5th and 6th position. And
this time it's Christy
Mackenzie and
McKenzie
Laurie first. The Italian second is Otter this time, causing no trouble at the final portage. And Mackenzie and Peckett just off the back, and it's going to be hard for them now to catch Laurie and Mackenzie, who have left the portage with intent.
Christy McKenzie quite keen to add a great position to go with her bronze medal in the K1 race yesterday. Sabina Laurie has been an absolute bundle of energy in the back of that boat. And they've got that final 1,000 meters all pre-planned. As Emis Kolhalmi and Olga Bako paddle in front of the crowd here. And a crowd that has really appreciated what has been a phenomenal performance. A second place boat of Korsos and Nagy now coming down towards the drift bridge. They've got about 300 meters to go. There's no race. That's a silver that's guaranteed to them. So they're just completing the journey. It's a couple of 100 meters.
Quick glance up to the camera there.
Yeah.
Girls are always aware of where the cameras are. So it's in their DNA now. So here they come, 200 odd meters left to go to the finish. To their right, Ben Story leads the C1 race. He's got 2 portages left to go, but no portages for these two. Second place. Be really interesting to know if that's a disappointment for them or not. I think it would be disappointing that they've been that far behind. They would have expected to stay with their compatriots, I'm sure.
And it's a super strong finish for the girls. Sofia Korzos, Victoria Nagy taking it down to the line and completing yet another Hungarian 1-2. You read it right, I think.
Not quite the smiles
You
that
read
the
it
first
right.
crew had.
It's a medal.
Smiling now, but
No, it says it all, I
they
think.
were world champions last year, had to settle for second this year. Way in the background, just behind the C1, you can see Peters and Russell of Great Britain. They're going to finish third. There they are. It's been a tough race for them today. They lost touch with the Hungarians at the first portage. The whole journey on their own, but they stuck to their task well. Great result for them.
Well, that was always going to be the make or break. If there was any mental fragility about them, they would have started worried and panicking about chasing packs and whether they had what it takes to consolidate that third. But Freya Peters and Emma Russell, it's going to be another medal for the juniors from Team GB, which will
We're
be really
doing well on
encouraging.
the medal table, Team GB. We're going to be second on the medal table still after this. And, yep, up until this point, we're the only people who've stopped the Hungarians getting first and second with yesterday's result from Charlie Smith in the junior men's K1. Great second place there.
And I've really enjoyed the attitude from Peters and Russell. There's a lot of determination. There's a lot of guts in that boat.
Very strong mentally, both of them.
They're not going to get tempted to get into a sprint boat.
Oh, we all do everything back at home. Yeah, it's always a bone of contention. But no, these two both from clubs that fully respect the value of marathon racing, and you know, these girls will do well, whatever they choose to do.
So there's the last step on the junior girls K2 podium being sorted out. The black boat of Freya Peters and Emma Russell. They've got 250 meters to get down to the finish line here at Camps Drift. And they're getting a warm round of applause from the crowd that's packing in the grandstands on a absolutely sensational day, and a day that they're going to cherish for a long, long time as they come down to the finish line to claim the bronze medal in the junior girls K2 race.
Fantastic result for them today.
Yeah.
Very happy with that.
Special images.
And you can see in the background, the South Africans have taken it to the Italians. It's going to be Mackenzie and Laurie in fourth place. They closed up a lot of ground on the British crew over that last little lap.
Well, this is Christy Mackenzie, who got the bronze yesterday. Didn't sleep a wink last night. Sabina Laurie really drove her throughout this race, and I think they've showed what they're capable of doing, and it's going to be a fast finishing fourth. Down to the line. And she'll be thrilled with that. She really will.
It's a great result for the South Africans there. Italians in fifth.
Christy Jo Mackenzie. It's all sinking in on her face.
You have to feel for the South Africans there. If it wasn't for that incident in the very, very early stages, you would have thought they could have a proper battle with the Great Britain crew for that bronze medal. But that's how racing works.
So 5 going to Italia Campagna and Teresa Isotto, and 6th going to go to the other South African crew.
Mackenzie and Peckett.
Chris Joe's cousin, Caitlin Mackenzie, and Amy Peckett. Amy Peckett was up for the fight today. She was running those portages really hard.
I mean, you described them as the second-ranked South African crew from the start, but as a neutral observer, there didn't seem much to choose between the two South African crews today. So they must have stepped up quite well for their race today, and they've really given it some. So coming into the portage, Ben Story, portage 4, 1 more to go for him. And the paddler behind him has been lapped, so he'll be taken out of the race. And the two chasers are about 30 seconds behind Ben Story, who's pulled away. He capitalised on his portage His last portage where he gained 2 or 3 lengths. Little wave to the crowd there. So Dory runs through. Straight to the end of the portage. Right knee in, left foot in, and away clean. He's going to finish this race untroubled, it seems. Here's the 2 chasers, Maciel and Gluser.
Gluser in the white boat.
And the blue boat there has been lapped.
Spared. Escaped the sword for now.
They seem to be allowing him to carry on to do another lap. I'm not sure if he'd be thanking them or not for that. That's the Argentinian, Meister. That's his name, not his...
Sergio Maciel getting away nicely at the end of that portage, just ahead of Patrick Gluser. This is the race for silver and bronze.
Maciel just looking over his shoulder, see where Gluser is.
Portugal and Poland.
I think they've
the gold's going to Hungary.
Going round together.
Benz Balasdori. Such a big sport in Hungary, and I guess really important that they come away from a sprint worlds and a marathon worlds with a really decent medal haul. I mean, every federation is always under pressure, and your measure for performance is always going to be medals at world level.
I think so, and you know, having watched the racing today, that there's people sat at home in Hungary this weekend who didn't make their team, who could well have medalled in an awful lot of these events, and that's tough. Danes finishing. It's been a tough day for them, and you can see it on their faces. That has been a hard day out for them. Danes traditionally so strong in the marathon events. But there's Dory on his way. He's not on the...
Yeah, you can slot him in at 0 if you want there, if you want to afford 0 to the leader at this stage. But it's Benz Balasdori from Sergio Maciel and Patrick Gluser. That's the way that it stands.
So the graphics are a little bit wrong for that, but currently it's Benz Dory from Hungary. A good few lengths up now on Maciel and Gluser, and then it's Kolsar, Bourgil and Rodriguez in that second group.
We'll just say those are scores for artistic merit. Real position, number 1 and another gold heading the way of Hungary and Ben Dory. Plenty of gas still in the tank. Huge reach forward into the catch.
You'll see paddles up to the top turn in front of us in commentary. The Swedish crew in the women's junior K2 of Johansson and Lagerstam just going up for their final last lap. Final last lap? Can you have any other sort?
Well, that's flat out and faster, isn't it? We're redefining the dictionary this afternoon.
We're working on it. We really are.
Bentz has been mercurial today. You'll find a lot of youngsters believe that the man bun is also instrumental to top performance. I'm going back to Alan Houston here on the Andrew Houston. Takes a lot of abuse for opting for the man bun to keep the hair out of the way while he's paddling.
There's a time and a place for a man bun. If you're winning the World Championships, you can pretty much do what you like.
Whatever the hell you like, yeah. Joanna Garcia and Aldara Merino. It's been a long, hot day for them on the waters of Campsdrift.
The Spanish juniors so far have had a pretty tough time of it out here. It hasn't fallen for them in any way. So this is Kolsar ahead of Bourgil, and in the background Rodriguez. This is 4th, 5th and 6th.
Kolsar's so slick on the getaway.
Senior men's, under 23 men rather, C1. And the Colombian struggling to maintain contact as he comes out the portage, but great to see a Colombian here.
Yeah. I think we've got 28 nations represented. The only disappointment of any, Ivan, to be honest, is the lack of representation from the rest of Africa. This event was due to double as the African Championships as well.
Okay.
And I know real efforts were made to reach out into Africa to go to some of the strong paddling nations to get their paddlers out here, even on training camps beforehand, and make this a learning and building experience. But
I know there's a lot of work goes into bringing the developing in terms of canoeing, the developing nations into the sport. I was talking to a Hungarian guy, Csaba, I can't think of his second name, last week, who's responsible for the ICF development program, and a lot of work goes into that. But it's just hard to come here and to bridge the gap between being a developing nation and a competing nation is very tough to do.
There was a hope that billing it as an African Championships would at least lure them down, because even if they did have, South Africa would definitely be the dominant nation, there was always a third medal to race for and lots to learn in the process. And let's look forward to the next one. We had a lot of African nations down here when we had the Olympic qualifier in the sprints, and we were hoping at least to get those nations back and a few more. Looking forward, I know the efforts from the CAC Continental Federation and Csaba Zanto and the development team that works so hard in Africa to try and get the various disciplines. We've just had the Canoe Polo Championships in Namibia, supported by a few nations, so there's a drive to get more and more of the African nations involved across all of the disciplines under the ICF umbrella.
I think for the sport to grow, that we're doing the right thing at the moment. The presentation of the sport has gone up and up over the last 5 years, and the better we present the sport to the outside world, the more people will be interested in it and the more countries will come to the events. In view now, that's Colsar and Bourgil with Rodriguez in the background, still trying to make up for his poor portage. But there's the leader, Ben Story from Hungary. Just one more portage to go now for these guys. So one big lap, one small lap, and their day's work is done.
So comfortable, so stable in the boat. Leaning that hard to the left. Big draw stroke over to the right to get the boat round the turn cans.
So that's his last trip round the long lap at the top. It's down through the bridge, past the finish, around the bottom turn, and then the short lap. And there, 7:04 Colsar, and with him 7:07 Bourgil from Poland. So Hungary, Poland, Hungary still in with a chance of another medal here. Actually, no, I'm lying, aren't I?
No, 2 and 3 is
lying.
still being decided
That's
between
fourth and
Kluser
fifth
and
there.
Masil. This is 4
Sorry.
and 5.
I was getting overexcited. It happens.
Count the laps. Colsar just running his eye over the possible chasers. The Colombian's going to pose no threat to him.
So the Australian girls, K2 of O'Rourke and De Kretzer, starting their final lap. It's been a tough day from their initial swim. Gone around the whole race on their own.
Big up to them. You could easily find justification for heading straight for the bank after a disaster like that, but they've slugged it out on their own. They've trained hard, they've come a long way to get here, and I think they've done spot on the right thing. They can take a lot of credit and a lot of heart out of this.
Absolutely,
Well
and the
played.
boat in front of them, we can see in shot now, they're just about to finish. That's the Swedes, Johansson and Lagerstam, coming in for their final 50 metres.
Sitting so close to the back of the cockpit there.
And the junior women's K2 race draws to a close.
Nothing nags more than just touching on the back of the cockpit and start.
Yeah, it will definitely affect your rotation, but she had enough space there, but possibly enough room to have moved the footrest forward and the seat. But it could be a boat that's shared between many paddlers, and that was the setup of the more preferred, maybe the senior paddler, and that was the setup she had to paddle with. But yeah, enough space for her to get a good rotation there, and that's what counts.
Farina there in fourth place, the Italian, coming tight round the turn and overtaking Meister, as a few of these guys have now. Meister's been lapped by the fourth place paddler. Out the front, it's Dory. He's just caught up with the Australian Joachim. So Joachim and Meister probably won't continue after this lap.
So Ben Story, victory possession for the Hungarian. Doug Bird's down at the portage area.
Christy and Sabina here, the South African girls that managed to come fourth. Of course, Christy yesterday getting the bronze for South Africa. Sabina jumping in the back of the K2 today. Talk us through the race, girls. It was another very, very hard battle.
Yeah, the start was a bit shaky. We got into Nelo like 2 weeks ago, so it was all very new to us. But yeah, we gave it our best shot, and I think we both really chuffed with the result.
Well, you clearly had a lot of hard work to do throughout the race. We saw there was a lot of jostling in the portages, but at one point, I think it was on 2 portages actually, I saw that you had quite a bit of water in the boat.
Well, the boat, we changed the pumps because they weren't working previously, and it was fine while we were training with it up until today. The boat just continually filled up with water, and we will have to check what was wrong. We don't know.
But I mean, good recovery though, because this last portage, you really made it count. Somehow managed to keep the water out the boat. You broke away.
Yeah, it was a hard last big lap because we couldn't take any rest sitting on half time in there because we knew we'd fill up. So we just had to work the whole time, either pulling or sitting on first wave. And yeah, I managed to get to the portage with minimal water in the boat, and yeah, just hooked it on the last portage as hard as we could.
Now it's game over for you guys for this week of racing. It's time to put the feet up. What's next on the cards?
Well, obviously watching all the senior races, which are going to be incredible. And then, of course, on Sunday, the Funky Pants after party.
Fantastic. Well, great result, girls. Effort out there was superb. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Doug. Sabina Laurie and Christy McKenzie. It's been a great weekend, a third and a fourth. They'll take so much out of that. And I think Christy McKenzie will probably sleep like a log tonight, having had 0 sleep last night and having raced her heart out today. I suspect there are going to be some large Zs coming out of Christy's.
Either that or a big party night. I mean, you can go either way, can't you?
Well, they're absolutely slobbering at the prospect of getting into the after party here on Sunday night in the forbidden zone, it must be said. Let's not blow exactly where it's going to happen. It is a to-be-disclosed venue. I do believe Doug Bird blew it on the first day of competition, but it is, as it stands right now, still a hidden, secret, forbidden zone venue.
So they're second and third in the men's C1. The C1's all over the course now. Several of the athletes being lapped by these front runners. Ahead, there he is, Ben Story, world champion waiting to be crowned now. That's just to his right is Nakagima from Japan. He's been lapped. It looks like we're going to take 2 or 3 of these paddlers out of the race before the finish.
Ivan, I want to touch on something which has just come up over the last couple of minutes here. We're seeing some fantastic racecraft on the water. And Antus quite rightly pointed out, those girls were probably sharing a race boat. We heard yesterday when we were talking to Andre Santos, who's at Nello, he just said, here's Adam Varga, who's the best in the world at the moment. He's probably racing the only boat he's got access to. So the access to these top-end boats is clearly going to be an issue. And I want to unpack this in a little bit more detail. Doug Bird's down at the portage area with more of our medalists.
I've got 2 very, very, very excited young Brits here with me on my left-hand side. Emma and Freya, they managed to hang on for the bronze medal today, and it was not an easy job, was it? Because you were essentially isolated from the first lap.
Yeah, it's a long way on your own. It's a long, long way. It's not. Well, the plan was just to sort of hang on to the Hungarians for as long as possible, get enough of a buffer, and then just hope for the best.
Well, you certainly did hope for the best, but you had to deliver, and you did that. Great power on the back of the boat. You looked like you're really pushing through in the portages. How was it for you today?
Yeah, it was pretty hard work, but I knew coming through the portages, if we kept them smooth and just did them as quick as possible, we'd at least sort of keep a gap from the chasing group, and that's what we did, so it worked.
So now when you isolated as you were in the race, what do you guys work on? Do you work on counting a number of strokes to kind of work on 2-minute cycles, 4-minute cycles to keep up the pace to make sure you don't tap off? Because it's difficult sometimes to gauge how fast you're going.
I just tried to keep my technique in order, to be honest, and try and keep the same pace going around. I can't count when I'm paddling.
Well, it seemed to work out very well for you girls. A bronze medal. You've got to be absolutely stoked with that. Well done to both of you. And yeah, man, it's party time for you guys. Back to you guys in the studio. Brits with the third.
Thanks, Doug. 2 very excited young ladies. Soon going to see them on the medal podium, and it's, I think the reality is going to sink in when that big, large medal drops in around their necks. Meanwhile, in the C1 under-23 race, Bence Dori of Hungary continues his victory march. On the water is Tasuku Nakajima of Japan. It's also gutsed it out today. And I'm going to take you straight back. This is a borrowed boat. This is a locally borrowed boat. I think the cost and the practicalities of getting whatever boat it is that Tasuku trains in back home over here is just such an issue. Anybody who's had to travel to a World Marathon Champs will know about having to pack your race boat into a container 2 to 3 months before and having to do without it. So the availability of this top-end racing equipment is clearly going to be one of those stumbling blocks for every team.
It is. I mean, we had to pick our team for Great Britain at the Europeans. So we still haven't had our final selection races. So I was part of the process of getting the boats into that container, and you're working out that you've got enough K1s and enough K2s to cover any eventuality, but it's not necessarily going to be people's personal boats. So you are having a compromise, but you guys have to suffer that every year. We only suffer it occasionally when the races are outside Europe. So normally it's very easy for us, but it's just something you have to deal with on the day. The boats are, they're fairly standard. You can put your own fittings in, of course. You can bring your own fittings out in your own bag, and kit the boats out in the way you want them. So it's not too difficult. It's the downer, obviously, is if someone breaks your boat the day before you have to race it and you have to fit out another one. But shared boats, it's not the biggest problem, but ideally you'd be in your own.
Yeah, the minute somebody comes in and explains that their race has been hampered by a moving seat pin or a failed pump or footrest that didn't feel right, and your immediate reaction is to say, well, there's no excuse for a technical. You would look after your own boat, but it's often not your own boat. So they've often picked it up straight off the team trailer, and you do the best you can to sort of run a rule over it before you race, but it's not bulletproof.
So Ben Story, there's his final portage. That's what he's looking at right now. And he has opened a considerable gap in the last couple of laps.
And there's the race for silver and bronze as Patrick Gluser and Sergio Marcel come around that bottom turn can, the Eurosteel turn can. Sure, there'll be lots of Polish supporters gathered around their PCs and desktops and TVs cheering them on. Big sport down there.
It was Gluser who had the best of it at the Europeans earlier this year. He won there, whereas Maciel came in third position. So
that's Nakajima, who's some way behind these two, racing in Antwerp, I think is the only C1 that exists in South Africa.
So Drone following Dory into his final portage.
Going past that massive athlete's chill zone which has been set out. It's going to be very handy on Sunday afternoon, where I believe the temperatures are going to go right up again.
I think that's a concept that could catch on for subsequent World Championships, an area where the athletes can go. You might not need it as a shade from the heat in many countries, but it will be. It's a great feature. The athletes will sit in there, they'll all have a chat together, take their refreshment, be chilled out before their race.
Yeah, you walk into the athletes' village, and it's all defined by geographic borders. Everybody's in their own insular little tent, and there's very little breaking of those barriers. But the minute they're all sharing beanbags in the chill zone and having a cup of coffee or something cool to drink, the mood down there is fantastic. So Ben Story completing his last portage.
Just as Maciel from Portugal gets out at the other end, he seems to have broken.
And where's Gluser?
Gluser by about probably 20 meters ahead of Gluser. So Maciel rather, has made his move for the silver medal, and it looks safe. Dory away and clear. And Maciel.
Big move by the Portuguese.
He's made inroads into the leads of the Hungarian. He's not going to. He hasn't got time to catch him, but he's halved the gap, I think, between him and the Hungarian over the last 4 minutes.
There's a big burn coming from Sergio Marcel. Patrick Gluser is going to have to resign himself to that bronze because he's been dropped unceremoniously. These two were side by side coming into their bottom turn, and between the bottom turn and the portage, Sergio Marcel has just suddenly found the turbo and pushed the button. So the gold is still going to go the way of the Hungarian Ben Story. But Maciel is looking very likely to add the silver to the swag of Portugal.
Portugal have been so strong in the canoe classes for a long time now. Senior world champions, junior world champions. You're going to get an under-23 silver medalist here. They're always there or thereabouts with Poland and Hungary. And that's how it's going to finish today. Hungary, Portugal and Poland. They're the three strong countries in these events.
So we're tracking Bens Balas-Dori as he heads up to the short turn can. Remember, it's 500 meters up from the portage put-in. And then just a little bit longer than that down to the finish line. There's no sign of the charging Sergio Maciel in that shot, so there's no threat to that gold medal. It's been super impressive from the Hungarian today. And by this time yesterday, the temperatures were into the low 30s, threatening to get up to what was eventually 36, 37. Conditions far kinder to the paddlers today. They pretty much perfect. Clear skies, far milder temperatures. Venture to suggest pretty much ideal marathon racing conditions here at the Drift. There's a shot
Ideal
of
commentating conditions. It's nice cool breeze coming through our tent. Sat here in our t-shirt and shorts, sipping our cool waters.
Just need a little neck massage while we're doing the job. Bens Balas-Dori on the final turn. Goes through the motions of glancing over his right shoulder to see where the chasers are. That chaser is Sergio Maciel of Portugal, but he poses absolutely no threat to that gold medal.
I'd still say that's a surprise to him that the Portuguese is that close, because he would have looked over his shoulder at the previous turn, and he wasn't nearly that close.
No, he knows he can't take his foot off the pedal. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Fourth place, Farina from Italy, just on his last short lap. He's just got in from the portage. As Dori heads back under the bridge. From the bridge to the finish is about 200 meters. And in front...
And he's busy hunting down one of his fellow competitors who's...
I think that's the German Sven Tosh.
Trying to avoid the ignominy of being lapped. But super impressive performance from Bens Balas-Dori today. And the Hungarian lead in the medals table is simply going to balloon.
I think it's unassailable now. Are there enough races left for anyone to match it? I don't think there are.
And that's before any Adrians or Renatas get on the water.
So a couple of the tail enders having to come in, having been lapped. They won't have the privilege of finishing that final lap.
I'm seeing a little half smile on the face of Balas-Dori there. Can afford himself that luxury. I'm not sure if it's a half grimace or half smile. He's worked relentlessly.
There's third place, Patrick Gluser. He was blown away by Maciel between the last bottom turn and the portage.
So Bens Balas-Dori with about 200 meters to go, less than 200 meters, 150 meters to go to the finish line here to claim the gold medal in the under-23 men's C1 class. It's basically never been in threat.
Rodriguez, the Colombian, over his portage in 5th place, and he's chased by Kosar of Hungary. But the Colombian is taking it to the Hungarian at the moment as the winning Hungarian comes down for 50 meters to go to his finish. Another dominant, untouchable performance by the Hungarian team, but closely chased in the end by Maciel from Portugal. Portuguese can be proud of that result.
Balas-Dori waving up to the drone. It's the new age of TV coverage, I guess. You don't just wave to the crowd or the cameras on the bank. You look up to the drone. So a special shot for him. Special moment. There he is, still fist pumping away. Means a lot to him. Second place going to Portugal. Sergio Maciel.
That is a good result for him. Very happy with that.
And that should leave bronze in the hands of Patrick Gluser of Poland,
Maciel had a poor race at the Euros earlier this year with a 6th place. That would have been a massive disappointment to him, but he's back and silver medal. 1 up from last year's Worlds where he was 3rd, and he'll be a very happy man. Gluser blown away by Maciel at the final turn, final bottom turn and the portage. He's coming in 3rd place.
Maciel can take a lot of heart out of that purple patch on that final half lap. Coming into that final portage and going away, he just found gas that he just didn't seem to have, certainly to challenge Dory.
The last 15 minutes, he must have been the fastest paddler on the water.
Patrick Gluser wraps up the podium in the under-23 C1 men's class.
As a tired man, reaching for a bit of sustenance, a bit of refreshment. Joy doesn't spring to mind when you see that. That's not an expression of joy there. That's relief at best. But there's confirmation. Bence Ballas Dory only 30 seconds ahead in the end of Maciel.
But a beautifully balanced and weighted race. He was always in control. I think when you've earned enough time to be able to get to each of those turn cans and realize that your chasers are having to work as hard, if not harder than you, then you know you've planned your race right and you've executed it. Wide turn on that final top turn can here. That C1 almost shipping water as it goes around the turn. But there's your champion for 2017, under-23 men's seaman, Bence Ballas Dory. It's looking fresh as a daisy. Remarkable.
Being greeted by Stefan Gustafsson, who arranges all this TV coverage for you guys out there. Does all the technical aspect. Hungarian team leader there, knowing he's going to have to don his tracksuit for the 10th time already this week. We have to listen to the Hungarian national anthem again. Becomes quite a fixture. Handshakes all round. And Ross from the ICF media team there also getting the photos that will go out and keep the publicity going.
Meanwhile, back on the water, Luca Farina of Italy, completing his C1 under-23 race. Nice strong finish from the young man.
The strength of Italian canoe paddling over the last few years is amazing. You know, I've been in the sport for a long, long time, and for years and years the Italians had no one. And now they've put in people in the medals, in sprints, close to medals in marathons. Quick phone home from Maciel there.
I wonder who's there.
Just checking that they left the cat food out, probably. But Gluser there, very much a broken man. And down we go for some trackside interviews.
So we got Olga and MSA here, the gold medalists in the junior K2 girls. What a wonderful race it was. I'm going to have to go very slowly here because their English isn't great. So very easy question. Today your race was perfect.
Yes, we think it was what we planned, and yes, it's all.
So did you come here with the intention to break away as soon as possible?
Yes, it was our plan, and the first turn, yes, we we turn on a higher speed and stay alone, and we complete the race alone, and it was okay. It was our plan, so it was fine.
So how often do you paddle together in the boat in training?
We were in a sprint world championship, but I went with another partner, and she went K1. So after the sprint world championship, we trained together, but we are on in the same team, so it was easy to train, and yes.
Well, fantastic result. Gold medal. Well done. Good job. High five, high five. You can't leave me hanging. Good job out there. And yeah, that's the wrap for them for racing. They've got to be stoked. Another gold medal for Hungary, Dave. Can you believe it?
Good one, Doug. It was a remarkable performance. And what she said in her English, it's actually summed it up beautifully. They executed their win on that first lap, and then they just completed it. It was a truly remarkable performance. Two girls who've come from different boats and different responsibilities in the sprint champs in the Czech Republic of 2 weeks ago, and combined into an absolute juggernaut girls K2 boat. So congratulations to them. It'd be fantastic to see how that continues. It's got a huge prospect.
There's confirmation of it there. The huge margin, 2 minutes 44 from a world-class crew. Another 2.5 minutes back to third place. And then the South Africans who took it to the Italians down the last 5 minutes of that race. While we were interviewing, Kolsar from Hungary finished in 5th place in the C1. Rodriguez couldn't hold the gap they gained at the last portage. He finished in 6th and now in 7th, 7:07. Bourgil from Poland is in 7th place.
Raises an interesting point. There are a number of athletes, in fact, maybe even more than we've been paying attention to, who were racing in the Czech Republic at the Sprint Worlds 2 weeks ago. So we'll unpack that. Anna Kaziszka was one of them. We're going to talk about who's
Benz Dori, who is the men's C1 under-23 champion, a gold medal. The smile on your face says it all. It looked like a perfect race for you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a really easy win, and I'm glad to make it to the top of the world again.
So gold medal, of course, was your clear intention to come here today to win. What type of preparation did you put into training for this event?
Yeah, I have to say that it's been a pretty tough season for me since I've done sprint races too, and I didn't really know what to expect because I didn't really have much time to prepare for the marathon. And I know the Polish guys were fast. I saw them in the Europeans, and yeah, that's it.
So it looks as though paddlers that are focused on sprints, because a lot of the Hungarian team are doing sprints and marathon, that the transition goes very, very well because you have the power to go really fast when you need to on the intervals.
Yeah, I think that a 1,000-meter paddler needs a lot of endurance to do well, and you can put this endurance, of course, to marathon too, and you need some strength, and yeah, that's why 1,000-meter paddlers do well on marathon too.
Well done to you. Excellent racing out there today. Congratulations, gold medal. What a performance it was. Treated to 14 paddlers on the C1 lineup there for the under-23s. Back to you guys in studio.
What's really interesting there, though, they come back from sprints and they're winning the marathons. That's fine. But that's because they've got a marathon background. They still know how to handle themselves on the marathon course. Several times in the past we've had sprinters who don't have a marathon background come to the sport, and to be fair, they look like jokers out there. There's all bluster and a lot of speed, no intelligence, and you can't fit back into this sport if you haven't learnt it when you were young and you've got the upbringing in the sport. You understand what you're trying to do.
I guess it also points to a culture of marathon racing, learning to paddle in a club where marathon racing is fun and attracts decent people, and you graduate through the position of being fun to being competitive, and it's a culture of racing.
I think it's very hard to stick at any sport unless you're having fun, and the moment that fun's gone out of it, you can only survive for so long on results alone. So in shot there, Sven Tosh from Germany. He's coming down for his last 300 meters. There are still paddlers out there who are yet to go around the bottom turn. One of the Spaniards passing us, opposite us now. I think Moreno is going down to the bottom turn and back.
Well, let's catch up with the second place boat from the under-23 C1 race. Doug Bird.
With Sergio here with me. He's had a fantastic race out there today, duking it out right towards the end. Rui, though, is his interpreter. He's going to help us out with the interview. Very interesting race for us South Africans watching sea boat racing. And it looked like it was a very tight race, only 100 meters in it towards the end.
Estava a perguntar como é que foi a corrida, que foi muito dura, e como é que foi a prova, que os sul-africanos gostaram muito.
A minha prova foi a largada muito má, tentei recuperar nas 2 primeiras voltas, conseguimos juntar ao húngaro, ainda tive com ele 2 voltas, depois foi tentar poupar-me para tentar o pódio, e conseguiu.
He said the start was very hard, very tough, and then he catch the Hungary guy, but he said that he was really strong, and he said it's better relax and go to the Polish, be with the Polish guy, and then start to recovering for the final sprint, and then that he have done. He have to recover with the Polish, and then in the last portage, before the last portage, making his final attack and search for the silver medal, and he got the silver medal.
Well, his portages today were absolutely perfect. He looked very, very comfortable on the runs.
As portagens foram fáceis para ti?
Foram, senti-me muito bem. Tive a resposta, consegui responder bem nas portagens, consegui me destacar. Foi ótimo. Foi excelente.
Yeah, he said it was a really good portage because all the marathon guys, they now with this kind of marathon program, they have to training a lot running with the boats, and he have done his homework very well. He said he feel really good in the portage.
Well, congratulations. And Ru, I believe you're also a double medalist in your time racing in the marathons?
Yeah, of course. I have been in last century, but now what counts is the new generation and new boys.
Well, congratulations, guys. Great work out there today. Dave, Ivan, back to you guys in the studio.
Rui Cancio there, the greatest paddler that ever lived. You only have to ask him, he'll tell you that. But great translator also, so thanks Rui for that. While we were talking, I think Sven Tosh finished in 8th position in the men's C1, and we're looking at Davidov from Ukraine there, 3rd at the Worlds last year. Not such a great day for him. And just thinking about it, while that interview is going on, the paddlers are getting off the water to our left here, and Kolsar from Hungary got off the water with no medal. To get on that team bus at the end of the weekend with no medal, yeah, it's a tough one. He's come 5th in the world, and in Hungarian terms, hasn't done so well. And it's quite a tough pill to swallow, I would imagine.
Yeah, interesting time. I guess when you head back to your tent in the athletes' village and there's just medals hanging on every available hook, and you come back without one. I guess it's up to the management and the coaches to say, listen, collectively, this team is on top. You're part of a team, a collective, and build on that and go forward, because the last thing you want to do is browbeat a top athlete and try and give him a sense that he's failed on the day when it hasn't been a fail. It's been a top 5 result in a World Champs, but he will sleep uneasily, I guess.
Any other team would be happy with a top 5 result. You know, once you're cracking the top 5, you're one of the players, and to be a non-medalist and be judged on that must be a fairly brutal world to be living in.
Well, a fantastic shot during Doug's interview of the cows being sent down to graze on the side of the drift. In fact, if you look slightly beyond the summary of the men's C1 that you can see, there's confirmation of the way that it stands. The medals are going the way of Hungary, Portugal and Poland through Dori, Maciel and Gluza. Farina wrapping up 4th, the Hungarian we were chatting about just now, and Kolzar in 5th. Colombia taking 6, Poland 7, and Sven Tosh a few moments ago crossing the line in 8th for Germany.
The Colombian result there has got to be one of the results of the weekend. You know, he's come here, he's mixing it with the big guys, he's finishing with the Hungarian there, and beaten Bourgil, who's a habitual medalist at European and world level. So, yeah, that's a great result for him.
Think about the Colombians. If to try and encourage the sport at an international level, there is an effort from the marathon committee at the ICF to rotate this marathon worlds. But the Colombians are on a hiding to nothing because they have to travel long distances to every single one. I don't think we've had a marathon worlds in South America. I'm sure they're due their turn. I'm trying to think on my feet here.
We definitely haven't had one there.
No, so they've travelled the long distances to every single marathon world. So
they
big up to them.
They did have a marathon show event in Colombia a few years back. I can't remember what the event was actually called now, which is a little bit embarrassing, but it was a big event they staged in South America. Not a world championship, but across the line there, Davidov, Ukraine, in 9th position.
Gee, long day for the big man.
And just a couple of paddlers left out on the water. Just getting in from his final portage is Herrero from Spain.
Great aerial view of Davidov at the end of his race. The sun baking down on Kampsdrift here in Pietermaritzburg. Springtime here in South Africa, but we've had an unusually hot week. The sun making life a little difficult for our TV people to produce anything other than silhouettes on the TV images, but they've done a fantastic job of it.
And that's Moreno, also from Spain, and I'm trying to pick up where he is on the course.
He's heading up to the last turn can, I believe. There he is, up to the last short turn can.
So 2 Spaniards pretty much together.
Once again, a chance to doff our hats to the marathon officials, the guys who spend the entire day sitting on a rubber duck monitoring a turn can. You've really got to love what you do. See them piling on the sunscreen before they head out there because they get absolutely baked. They came off the water yesterday with a great thirst, it must be said, a great spirit and a great enthusiasm and a great thirst. But I think those are the officials that get under-recognized. I think we take them for granted. So
it was worth it, to be fair, for the braai we had last night back at the hotel. The guys there turned us out a great bit of lamb. And it was really, really nice. And so just for that alone, it's worth travelling as an official.
I think your repeat trips to South Africa have been partly driven by the food here. It is international.
Well, that and the small little suburb we're staying in is called Wensleydale, which is something of a tourist mecca for Wallace and Gromit fans. They're all over the place. And it's really interesting to see that such a small little suburb of Pietermaritzburg has reached international fame for that reason alone.
I think it's Wembley misspelt.
That's Wensleydale, definitely.
Wensleydale. You'll be excited to know that tomorrow is World Biltong Day.
World Biltong Day.
It's not in many people's diary, but tomorrow is apparently World Biltong Day. So if you don't, you'll
which is great for flavour, but bad for teeth, apparently.
It's great for exercising your jaw muscles.
The South African sales of toothpicks are going to skyrocket tomorrow after a day of biltong eating.
Right, what we might do, Doug Berg's going to help me here. We might have a little biltong tasting because there's biltong and biltong. So World Biltong Day tomorrow, Saturday. We might have to get a range of biltong to taste, and Anstott can take us through an educated biltong tasting. You're on? Right, live biltong tasting during the quiet moments of tomorrow's live streaming.
So in view now, with bib number 71, is Francisco Moreno from Spain. Just about to pass under the bridge for the final time. And he's going to love the official's boat, which is coming upstream towards him with a fair old wash behind it. I'm sure he'll be very grateful for that at the end of a 2-hour marathon.
So down to the finish he comes. A little bit of grade 2 water on Camp Swift to make it interesting for the seaboat paddler. Talking about rough water, Ivan, we talked about what happens just the other side of the weir down here in the doozy. Let's have a look at what the norm is here in summer. Have a look at the big screen, because this is what we do in the doozy when you go down below the weir. This is on day 3 of the doozy canoe marathon. This is an onboard look of what we look forward to every February when the rivers are full. The silly things we do. This is on day 3 of the doozy canoe marathon. You would normally portage around this, but this is a trip through Island 1 and Island 2, halfway between Inanda Dam and Durban. This is my paddler's point of view from a couple of years back. Gav Tar is the paddler in front, but Island 1, we went into the sight unseen as well. I know Anstott will probably have a line down Island 1. You need to have your line into Island 1 sorted, because when you get to the bottom, there's some big rocks in play. So this is what the South African paddlers do for fun in a marathon boat. And start giving it a pass. As long as you're upright, then you've passed on Island 1. There's about 300 meters of flat water, and then you head down into the second half of this rapid, which is called Island 2. So this is Island 2. Island 2 starts with an old broken down causeway. You need to approach it under the trees on the left. The great thing about the trees is you can't actually see where you're going. It's only when you pop out from under these trees and you've taken a good whack on the forehead from the low-level branch that you get a sense of the drop you're going into. Anstott knows this drop well, I believe. He'll tell you the story about Island 2.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nasty rapid, this one. It's obviously sitting in the boat. This shot looks not as bad as it is in real life, but when you're in that boat in the front and you drop over that edge, you're really hanging on for dear life. A lot of paddlers come unstuck. It's a massive gamble to take in doozy. I'm one of them. I've broken boats there. I've swum there. So most of the top guys tend to run over this section. They actually run over its Burma Road. You cut the whole corner. It's a 5-kilometer portage over a very, very steep mountain, which is what you can see on your left there. Otherwise, you paddle around and take on the rapids of Island, which are quite risky.
You in for that, Ivan?
Well, watching that, Dave, the timing is an amazing thing, both in comedy and paddling. And I don't think you'd grasped it fully through that whole journey. So I would hope that if you took me down there, my timing would be better than yours. But it's a really impressive thing to see. Going down water like that in race, spec boats really is a skill in itself. And it's a skill the guys here learned through the years of picking their own races when they were excluded from international competition. It evolved in a very different way to the rest of the world.
Second Spanish boat, Herrero, crossing the line. So we are slowly but surely accounting for all the athletes that have taken part in this under-23 men. Slightly easier bit of water now. I see our producers have actually managed to find... Where are we now, Ant? We are entering the Cascades right off the start of the Umsunduzi that we're on joins up with the Umgani River. So this takes us into the Cascades, which is a fun section of whitewater just after the confluence of the Umsunduzi and the Umgani rivers. It's quite a long stretch of water, but good fun, and it's something that I know I look forward to every year. This is in a year when we were gifted with decent water. South Africa being plagued by drought at the moment. We've had a fairly rocky ride down the Cascades over the last few years. But if anybody's interested, you can find out more at the website doozy.co.za. Give you a good look at what 1,600 up to 2,000 paddlers take part in every year. I think next to the Sella descent in Spain, it's one of the biggest races in the world. Swimmers on the right-hand side there. So back to the finish at Camps Drift. Last of the C1 paddlers in this under-23 men's race finishing. And then we should be able to take you to medal ceremonies. High point in the careers of the young men who've been excelling on the water today in the boys K1 and the under-23 men's C1. I think the boys of Hilton College in the house. So once again, a big thank you to those of you that have been contributing your comments via the live stream. Really do appreciate it. We'll try and get through to as many of those questions as possible. I know we went very briefly into the chatter about the clockwise course here. The clockwise courses are absolutely no stranger, and it's not the... and I know Ivan made the point, but it was one of the comments raised in the stream once again, as a doozy rat from years gone by. But the clockwise course, at least 2010 and 2011, that was Singapore was one of them. But the clockwise courses, as Ivan quite rightly pointed out earlier, are becoming more and more of a norm.
Yeah, we have had one or two clockwise courses over the year, and like generally there have been anti-clockwise courses, but in fact it was my last 2 years of competitive racing were both clockwise, Banyoles in Spain and then Singapore as well. And I must say we did try the anti-clockwise course here last year for our national championships, and it just didn't quite work out. We had the final turn down at the bottom, which was just around the corner, so there wasn't a direct line of sight from the bottom cans up to the finish. And what was happening is it was very easy to cut people off on the corner between the bottom cans and the finish, so it just wasn't quite working out. So they had to reverse the whole system to clockwise, and it's really changed the dynamic of the course. It works so much better to sprint down from above the bridge in a perfectly straight line to the finish, and it's really worked well. So yeah, there's good reason for that.
So junior men's K2 competitors just beginning to get on the water, and the first boat that I can see numbered up and on the water is Vakassi and Adam Varga. And really, you got to look at Vakassi there and think there's a man who can pick a partner. Because if you're going to have a partner in the back of your K2, Adam Varga would be the man, having watched yesterday. Put an engine like that in the back. Vakassi's pretty good driver. We've seen him competing at European and world level before, and that is going to be a K2 that's going to be hard to match.
The other event that's going to be happening at more or less the same time is the junior men's C2. But it goes back to a chat we had earlier, 4 boats on the start line. It's effectively a demonstration event. It's a non-medal event, and really would love to see the efforts to drive more youngsters into those sea boats result in more and more of them coming through their provincial and then national selections, making national teams, and then making the trip to wherever the Worlds are being held every year?
I think it's finances for a lot of the teams. You know, the bigger teams have to decide where the money's spent, and maybe Junior Men's C2 is one of the events that I'm just looking at last year's World Championships, and actually in the Junior Men's C2 we had 12 competitors, so 12 last year and 4 this year. You know, it's not the way the sport wants to be heading, that's for sure, and I'm sure there will be a lot of effort to reverse that trend in the coming years.
What we do see is there is a huge commonality in boat choice. There are a couple of manufacturers that are producing the boats of choice. Probably 75% of the paddlers are choosing to paddle in Nellos. You can add in a few Eliois, and one wonders about the validity of the argument for monotype boats. I know that was the argument that was put forward in the African Federation, where there just simply wasn't money to transport boats, and to have every athlete jump in and take a boat out of a pool of boats so that the boats are identical. It makes somebody who can't afford a top-end boat able to compete on an equal footing, and there are very strong pros and cons to racing in a monotype standard boat. So if we were to reverse up a trailer of 20 world-class K1s and K2s and C1s and C2s, and you simply drew one of those off the rack, you'd have the technicians on site to make sure that they were properly serviced and maintained, but it would put everybody, one, on an equal footing, and it would make the affordability of travel a whole lot easier.
I think you'd get arguments both ways from the manufacturers especially, and some of the athletes. And on all sports that are on a progression, it's the top-end development in equipment that sometimes drives that. You go right up to Formula One, and the technology that's developed filters down through to the lower levels, eventually even to your own road car, having some of the technology that was exclusive to Formula One years ago. So I think we need the development on that front, but I see your point, and cost-wise, definitely it would be a very effective way of doing it.
And those days of having the container reversed up to your clubhouse and having to pack a boat 3 months before a marathon event not only signaled that you were shelling out a lot of cash to get that boat to the other side of the world and then back afterwards, unless you did a sneaky, but it also meant saying goodbye to your preferred bit of training equipment.
Yeah, I must say it is a thing, but it's something as South Africans we introduced to from a very young age. We're used to seeing our preferred boat going off and jumping in the container and heading off for a few months. But everyone's got a backup boat. They've all got training boats which they've used in the past, so it's not a big thing really for us.
Thanks, Ant. It's medal ceremony time. Let's go down to the portage area and catch up with the medal ceremonies for the K2 junior men and the C2 junior. I beg your pardon. Doug Bird.
Ladies and gentlemen, the medal ceremony of the K2 Women Junior event. Ladies and gentlemen, we present the medalists for the K2 Junior Women event. The medals will be presented by Albert Woods, the president of the European Canoeing Association, and Robert Weiss, the team leader for Hungary. The bronze medalist in third position of a time 1:31.24. It goes to Great Britain, Emma Russell and Freya Peters. In the silver medal category, a stunning performance from Victoria Nagy and Zofia Korsos for Team Hungary. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you the gold medalists and world champions for the K2 Junior Women. Put your hands together for Olga Bako and MSE Kohlami for Hungary. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem of Hungary. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause and some recognition for the 2017 World Marathon Champions for the K2 Junior Women. What a performance it was today for Hungary.
Third position, Patrick Lutza, please can you report to prize giving immediately. Patrick Lutza, through to the prize giving ceremony immediately, please.
you can go for it, Doug.
Ladies and gentlemen, the medal ceremony for the C1 under 23 men will begin. Ladies and gentlemen, we present the medalists for the C1 under 23 men. The medals will be presented by Thomas Kaniensko, the ICF Vice President, and Robert Wies, the team leader for Hungary. The bronze medalist is Patrick Gluza for Poland. The silver medalist for Portugal, Sergio Maciel. The gold medalist and world champion representing Hungary. Put your hands together for Benz Dori. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem of Hungary. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause and recognition for your 2017 World Marathon Champions C1 Under 23, Benz Dori.